captured by the dawn. Aria pressed the toe of her wool sock against the radiator, soaking in the gentle hiss of heat while the November rain tapped the balcony doors like impatient fingers. The apartment was quiet, the sort of hush that felt earned after a long week. 2 shifts at the gallery, 3 nights covering a friend's bartending schedule, and a weekend class on digital illustration that left her brain humming with color theory. A scented candle flickered on the coffee table, sending lazy spirals of sandalwood into the air. She let her journal rest on her knees, pen poised but unmoving. The page was half filled with tiny, slanted handwriting, each line an attempt to untangle the same knot. How to keep distance from the life she had been born into, without cutting all the threads that still tied her to the people she loved. Her phone buzzed. "Tell me you ate something other than cereal," Giana said the instant Aria answered. "I warmed up tortellini," Aria lied. "That's pasta soaked in salt, real food, please. Also, you still coming over Sunday? I want your opinion on the new display window. I'll be there, promise." A pause. Giana's voice softened. "You okay? You sound tired." "I'm fine. Just thinking too much." "Thinking never killed anyone, unless you're thinking about your father again." Aria smiled bitterly. "He called twice today. I didn't pick up. Maybe stop counting the missed calls and block him. I keep hoping ignoring him is enough. If he can't reach me, he moves on to guilt. If that doesn't work, he shows up in person," Giana finished. "You want me to stay on the line while you lock up? It's raining. Streets are empty. Creepy movie vibes. I'll be in bed soon. Go flirt with Marco and leave me to my quiet existential crisis." Giana laughed, warm and teasing. "Fine, but text when you're under the covers or I'll worry." When the call ended, Aria set her phone screen down. She reached for her journal again, but the words she wanted kept slipping into the shadows of her mind. The rain thickened, drumming harder on the metal balcony rail. Headlights swept briefly across the ceiling as a car crawled along the curb below, then idled. She froze, pen hovering. The sigh of an engine remained low and patient. Probably a rideshare driver waiting for a ping, she told herself, though the last driver she'd ordered struggled even to find her street. Still, she closed her journal, letting it snap shut with more force than necessary. In the kitchen, she rinsed her mug, opened the fridge, shut it without taking anything. The engine outside continued to purr. "Paranoia," she muttered, but the word tasted too familiar. A flavor from childhood dinners when her father measured threats the way other fathers worried over unpaid bills. She tugged the curtains aside a slit. Rain distorted the glass, turning the shapes below into trembling smudges of gold streetlight. She could almost convince herself it was nothing, until she spotted a figure leaning against the passenger door of the idling car, shoulders hunched beneath a black jacket, face lifted toward her building. Her heart kicked. She let the curtains fall back. Maybe it was a smoker escaping the downpour. Maybe. She exhaled and ordered her pulse to settle. Aria forced herself into her bedroom, changed into an old t-shirt, brushed her teeth with aggressive focus. By the time she emerged, the engine noise had blended into the rain's white hiss. She clicked the deadbolt, then the chain, then checked them twice, cheeks flushing at her own nervousness. She set her journal on the coffee table, doused the candle, and reached to switch off the lamp. The lights died, and the room plunged into blackness far thicker than it should have. Power outage. Her throat dried. The streetlights beyond the balcony still glowed, so the building circuits hadn't tripped. Only her apartment. She spun toward the breaker panel in the hall. A floorboard moaned, not the one beneath her foot. Adrenaline surged. She swung her phone up, thumb fumbling for the flashlight. The beam sliced through the dark, straight onto a man's gloved hand closing around the phone. He yanked, flinging the device aside, and the light winked out. Aria screamed. Another hand clamped over her mouth, leather-covered, smelling of rain and gun oil. She twisted, driving her heel into a shin. The attacker grunted. The hand slipped. She bit down hard, tasting rubber. A curse in Italian answered her. A second shape emerged from the hallway, bigger, moving with silent certainty. arms wrapped around her torso, pinning her elbows. She kicked backward, connected with a knee, but the grip only tightened. "Hold her still," the second man ordered. His voice was smooth, almost bored. A hood came down over her eyes, a sharp chemical scent filling her nose. Cloth muffled her next scream. Plastic zip ties cinched her wrists. In the blind darkness she thrashed, but now hands were everywhere, at her shoulders, her waist, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. Through the hood she felt the night air sting her damp cheeks. Rain splattered her bare arms. Heavy footsteps descended the exterior stairs. Doors opened, closed. Her knees struck leather seats. Someone shoved her farther in, snapped a belt across her lap. "Drive," the bored voice said. Tires hissed against wet asphalt. Aria forced herself to breathe shallowly, refusing the dizzy fog creeping at the edges of her awareness. The hood muffled everything, street noise, the purr of the engine. But she heard them speaking in low Italian. She caught a name. "Sandro wants her unharmed." Sandro. The syllables vibrated with command, even secondhand. She pictured gray eyes in the dark, a face glimpsed across a gilded ballroom years ago when her father tried parading her like merchandise before more powerful men. Alessandro Moretti had watched her then, silent, inscrutable. She'd felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air-conditioned hall. The car sped through turns, engine growling harder. Her shoulder bumped metal. They were in the back of a van, she realized, sliding across its interior benches at every curve. "How far?" the first man asked. "Half an hour, if traffic is decent." Her zip-tied wrists burned as she tested their give. Nothing. Her mind darted to Giana's insistence on that goodnight text. Would her friend call the police when no message appeared? The gallery manager would worry too, but not until morning. That left hours unaccounted for. Hours Sandro might use to bury her existence. She forced herself to inhale slowly, counting. Panic clouded judgment. She needed clarity. She flexed her legs, noting space, surfaces, potential leverage. The floor beneath her vibrated. The tires hit smoother pavement, probably the toll road. The voices fell silent. Only the engine's hum filled the hood's cotton. She waited, heartbeat thrumming against her ribs until the van slowed, then stopped. A door slid, letting in the smell of pine and wet stone. Hands gripped her arms again, guiding her onto gravel. She tried to memorize each sound. Distant water dripping, faint classical music bleeding from somewhere. A metal gate groaned open. They walked her forward, footsteps echoing off marble. "Elevator," one muttered. A small enclosed space swallowed them. Cable gears whirred. She felt a scent. 5 seconds. 10. The doors parted with a chime. Carpet dampened their tread now. The air grew warmer, tinted with something floral and expensive. At last they removed the hood. Blinding light speared her pupils. She blinked hard. A chandelier dripped crystal above her. Walls of cream stucco and dark walnut panels stretched around an opulent foyer. The men, both dressed in black suits, rain darkening their shoulders, cut the zip ties. Aria's wrists throbbed, skin raw. She spun toward the taller one, fury boiling. "Take me back," she snapped, her voice hoarse. He regarded her with detached eyes. "Not my call. Giana will notice I'm gone. People will look for me. No one will find you here." Before terror could spiral, a third figure strode into view. Mid-30s, impeccably tailored charcoal suit molding broad shoulders, tie loosened as if he'd just left a boardroom. Dark hair swept neatly back. But it was the eyes, storm gray, unnervingly calm, that froze Aria's lungs. Alessandro Moretti. Enzo, the taller guard, dipped his head. She fought. Alessandro's gaze flicked to the angry red mark circling her wrists. Of course she did. He dismissed the men with a twitch of 2 fingers. "I'll handle it from here." Footsteps retreated. Silence expanded until Aria could hear the steady tick of an antique mantel clock nearby. Alessandro watched her with the patience of a predator who knows the prey has nowhere left to run. "Let me go," she said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "No. You can't just steal people." His brow lifted a fraction. "I can, and I did." She swallowed a tremor. "My father will—" "Your father already knows." The words struck hard. Heat surged to her cheeks, a mix of humiliation and rage. "You're lying." Alessandro stepped closer, enough for her to smell rain on his suit, faint leather, the clean tang of some expensive cologne. Lorenzo Rossi values survival above all else. He gambled with money he didn't have. Debts escalate, payments become impossible. So he offered something priceless. She forced a laugh that cracked halfway out. "Me? You." His tone softened by a degree, almost gentle, which frightened her more than the bluntness. He offered the one thing he no longer had control over, assuming I wouldn't dare act without your consent. Aria folded her arms to mask a tremor. "Then you've proven him wrong." A corner of his mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Your father underestimated my resolve." Resolve sounded too polite for whatever obsession gleamed behind those gray irises. She drew herself taller. "I'll never agree to anything you want. I don't need your agreement tonight. Only your presence." The calm certainty in his voice made her stomach lurch. She turned away, searching for doors, windows, finding only polished walls and the double staircase curling upward like marble ribbons. Guards stood at discrete intervals, hands clasped, faces blank. Even if she managed to scramble past Alessandro, she doubted she would make it 10 steps. "Why me?" she asked, quieter now. His reply came without hesitation. "Because you've haunted me since the night I first saw you. Because I've dreamed of your voice, your laugh, your spine of iron beneath all that soft grace. Because power means nothing if it can't claim the one thing it wants most." Every syllable was a slow slide of velvet over steel. Her body reacted with an uninvited shiver. He noticed. She hated that he noticed. "Come," Alessandro said, offering a hand she refused to acknowledge. "You're exhausted. I'll show you your room." "Cell, you mean?" "Room," he insisted. "A suite, if you prefer." "I prefer my freedom." "That is off the table." She lifted her chin. "You can keep me here, Alessandro, but you cannot make me yours." "We'll see." His voice was low, intimate, sending heat prickling across her skin, despite the anger raging beneath. He gestured to the nearest guard. "Your door remains locked from the outside. No harm comes to her. She is not a prisoner. She is a guest under my protection," he added, eyes never leaving Aria's. "But she may test boundaries. Indulge her curiosity, not her escape." The guard nodded once. Alessandro turned to Aria. "Rest. Tomorrow we talk about the future." He bowed his head a fraction, the gesture oddly courtly, then strode away, his footsteps measured and unhurried. The guard motioned toward the staircase on the right. Aria considered running in the opposite direction, but the other guards shifted subtly. Ready. She followed, heart hammering, mind racing through impossible calculations. At the top, the guard opened a door onto a dimly lit sitting room. A bedroom lay beyond, its king-size bed dressed in cream silk, pillows arranged in neat order. A balcony overlooked the drenched gardens. The guard stepped aside for her to pass, then closed the door behind her. A click of the lock followed. Alone, Aria pressed her forehead to the cool pane of the balcony doors. The night outside was starless, the garden lamps glimmering through the rain like distant eyes. She imagined Giana discovering her empty apartment. The spilled mug still in the sink, the candle crusted over with hard wax. She backed away from the glass and paced the room, counting steps, testing each window latch. Fixed. The bathroom offered no escape either. No vents wide enough. No window that opened. Exhaustion seeped into her bones, but fear kept her upright. She spotted a writing desk in the corner, its top empty, except for a fountain pen and embossed stationery. She lifted the pen, felt its reassuring weight, then set it down. No use. There was nowhere to send a letter. Finally, she crawled onto the pristine bed, shoes still on, and stared at the ceiling. Her wrists stung where the zip ties had rubbed raw. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Alessandro's gaze, unreadable and consuming. Tomorrow we talk about the future. She let out a shaky breath. Over my dead body. She whispered to the silence, though a small, unwanted part of her wondered what that future might look like if the iron resolve in his voice turned to something softer, something less terrifying. The thought horrified her even more than the kidnapping, so she shoved it away, curled beneath the comforter without undressing, and willed herself to stay awake, just in case someone tried her door in the night. But the rain's relentless lullaby blurred the edges of her determination, and eventually her eyes drifted shut, carrying her into a restless, uneasy sleep, filled with gray-eyed ghosts that whispered her name. Morning crept in beneath the velvet drapes like an intruder, thin gray light slanting across the bedroom floorboards. Aria woke with a start, heart battering her ribs as she sat bolt upright. For a moment she expected to see her apartment peeling wallpaper, thrift store dresser, but the silk-draped canopy above laughed at that hope. Memory flooded back, chasing sleep away. The hood, the van, Alessandro's gaze. She tasted fear like iron on her tongue. The door was still locked. She tried the handle twice, then rattled it hard, shouting until her throat burned. No answer. She stalked the suite, searching for anything sharp. A letter opener, hairpin, even a shard of broken china. The drawers and cabinets were stocked with lavish nothingness. Crystal perfume bottles, silk scarves, glossy magazines in Italian. All comforts, no weapons. A discreet knock finally sounded. Before she could reply, the lock clicked and Enzo entered carrying a covered tray and a carafe of coffee. He looked as crisp as the day's headlines, charcoal suit smooth, expression carved from granite. "Breakfast," he said. "I'm not hungry." "You need strength to speak with the Don." Aria folded her arms. "Unlock the balcony doors." "No. Let me call my friend. The Don will address your requests." She stared at the tray. Melon slices, brioche, cappuccino topped with careful foam art. Luxury masquerading as kindness. "You realize holding me is a crime?" Enzo's gaze didn't waver. "Legalities are flexible here. You're as bad as he is. I'm loyal. That is different. Loyal to a kidnapper." Enzo's jaw tightened, but he said only, "Eat," before leaving. The lock snicked shut. Aria paced again. Her phone was gone, of course. She inhaled the coffee's aroma, furious that it tempted her, then forced herself to eat a brioche bite. Strength, Enzo had said. She would need it. Late morning found her still in the suite, nerves coiled. Eventually the door opened to reveal not Enzo, but a petite housekeeper with wary eyes. Behind her stood another guard, broad-shouldered, palm resting on a holstered weapon. "I'm here to escort you to the Don," he said. Aria straightened her sleeves, chin high. "Lead the way." They guided her through corridors that smelled of polished wood and quiet wealth. Portraits of stern men lined the walls. Moretti ancestors, no doubt. A distant melody drifted from hidden speakers, something mournful on violin. At a carved mahogany door the guard knocked once, then ushered her inside a library, so large her footsteps echoed. Alessandro waited near floor-to-ceiling windows, reading glasses perched on his nose as he paged through a leather-bound ledger. Sunlight painted silver on his hair. He looked up, removed the glasses, and underestimated nothing in the way his eyes catalogued her. "Good morning, Aria." She forced calm. "Cut the pleasantries. Why am I still here?" "Because you belong here." He closed the ledger. "Sit." She remained standing. "What do you want?" "I want you safe. And I want you mine." Her pulse jumped. You're confusing possession with protection. They're intertwined. He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. When she refused, he sighed, walked around, and leaned against the edge of the desk within reach. Your father's creditors closed in, he said. He was desperate. I offered a solution: consolidation of power and debt forgiveness. His signature is on paper, granting me guardianship of his eldest child. My father doesn't own me. Legally, perhaps not, but ambition drives him to bargain with blood. Alessandro studied her. I expected him to stall. He surprised me by handing over everything with a flourish. Outrage sharpened her features. Even if he signed, "You still abducted me." I accelerated the timeline. Rival families smell weakness. Time is enemy to safety. You keep saying safety like it excuses this. She stepped closer, voice low. I won't marry you. His gaze flickered, a storm bank of emotion. Your refusal is noted, yet the ceremony proceeds in 3 days. Aria's breath seized. You can't force vows. I can vow enough for both of us until you choose to speak your side. You're insane. Alessandro reached out, fingertips skimming the welt on her wrist. The touch was gentle enough to make her flinch harder than any slap. I regret the bruises, he murmured, but not your presence. He straightened. Walk the grounds this afternoon. See for yourself how well you will live. Guards will accompany you, but not intrude. Reflect. Tonight we dine. You'll have questions. I'll answer them. She laughed bitterly. The gall of offering a tour like I'm house shopping. His mouth curved with the faintest amusement. If you find a corner you dislike, we'll redecorate. She turned away before emotion spilled. I'll never love you. I don't require love today. He opened the ledger again. Dismissed. The guard escorted her out. As doors shut behind her, she sagged against the wall, anger vibrating in her bones. The promised walk unfolded under watchful eyes. 2 guards flanked her at a distance, hands clasped, saying nothing. The estate sprawled like a private kingdom, manicured hedges, fountains murmuring over marble nymphs, rose gardens heavy with late autumn blooms. Beyond them, high stone walls and iron gates cut off any sight of neighboring properties. Aria tested boundaries, veering toward a side path. Guards followed. She quickened her pace. They matched. Finally, she spun to face them. Do you ever blink? They remained statues. Fine, I'm going back inside. She strode past them toward the nearest entrance and bolted left at the last second, sprinting along the hedge. Gravel sprayed under her boots. The guards cursed, footsteps pounding. She flung herself between rose bushes, thorns tearing her sleeves, and ducked through a service gate she'd spotted. It was unlocked. Hope ignited. Beyond lay a narrow lane leading downhill toward thick woods. She ran full tilt, lungs burning, hair whipping her face. Branches slapped her cheeks. She heard the guards shout but risked a glance. Only trees behind now. She reached a stone wall marking the property edge. It wasn't tall, but rain made the moss slick. She scrambled, fingers clawing for holds, boots sliding. A hand seized her ankle and yanked. She hit the ground hard, teeth clacking, mud cold against her palms. Enzo stood over her, chest heaving, soaked from rain. Enough. She glared, breath ragged. Shoot me then. No guns. He hauled her upright. I warned you, no one will find you here. I almost found freedom. He tightened his grip. Freedom that ends in a ditch when rival scouts catch you. So your prison is merciful? Necessary. She spat mud. Tell your Don I decline his hospitality. I think he heard. Enzo turned his head. Alessandro approached down the path, black umbrella unfurling above him like a raven's wing. Rain beaded on his suit. He walked as though unbothered by the weather or the situation. Predator at ease. Aria wrenched her arm away, blood streaking her sleeve from rose scratches. Alessandro surveyed her, took the umbrella from Enzo, and handed it to her. You're bleeding, he said. I'm breathing. She shoved the umbrella back. Unfortunately. His jaw flexed. Let's get you inside. She didn't move. Aria, he warned. Lightning cracked overhead, thunder trailing close. Wind shoved at her from behind, cold and wet. She wanted to stand her ground until the storm drowned her, but the guards closed in. Pride bent under survival. Inside, Alessandro guided her to a marble bathroom off the library. He dismissed everyone else, opened a first aid kit, and rinsed her cuts himself. She tried to swat his hands away. He caught her wrist. Sit still, he said quietly, I won't hurt you. You already have. A shadow passed his eyes. I will recompense every injury. He dabbed antiseptic across her forearm. You climbed a wall in the rain, brave but foolish. Spare me the lecture. Bravery fascinates me, foolishness endangers you. He wrapped gauze neatly. Done. She pulled back, skin tingling where his fingers had pressed. You could order your men to stand down. I could. You could also wait 3 days. For what, my forced wedding? For my vow, which includes your independence once threats are neutralized. You expect me to believe you'll let me walk free after binding me? Binding us, he corrected. Marriage under my name shields you. Afterward, if you truly wish to leave, we will negotiate. I only need time. She shook her head, voice thick. You don't request time, you steal it. His mouth tightened, but he stepped aside. Rest. Dinner at 8. Aria showered in scalding water, scrubbing away mud and thorns, but nothing washed out the dread knotting her chest. She changed into a plum silk dress left in the closet, chosen no doubt by Alessandro's staff. She hated how well it fit, how it made her complexion glow. She despised the mirror for agreeing with his taste. At 8 precisely, a knock sounded. Enzo again, this time he offered his arm. She ignored it, and followed. The dining room resembled a ballroom trimmed down for intimacy. One long mahogany table gleamed under chandelier light, yet only 2 place settings waited near the center. White porcelain, crystal glasses, silverware catching fire from candles. Alessandro stood when she entered. His tuxedo was classic black. No tie tonight, collar open enough to reveal the strong line of his throat. He gestured to the seat across from him. Wine? He asked, uncorking a bottle of Barolo. I'm not drinking anything you pour. He filled only his own glass. Suit yourself. Courses arrived, saffron risotto, herb-crusted lamb, roasted artichokes. Aria refused each until hunger clawed too loud. She nibbled risotto, eyes never leaving him. Mid-meal, he set his fork down. Tell me your favorite city. What? Humor me. She stared. Florence. He nodded. I own an apartment overlooking the Arno. We'll spend our honeymoon there. She slammed her water glass. There is no honeymoon. There will be. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I'll give you Florence, Paris, Tokyo. Whatever horizon you want. I want the horizon that starts at my apartment door. A muscle ticked in his cheek. We're past that door. She swallowed anger. Why me, Alessandro? There are women who would pay to stand where I am. Yes, and I would never crave them. He reached across, palm up. Since that ballroom night, not one day passed without thinking of you. Every report brought your name. Every photograph your father sent as bargaining chip only anchored my resolve. His eyes grew dark, voice husky. I don't want a docile bride. I want the woman who tried to bite through a glove. Heat flickered through her chest, unwelcome. Obsession isn't love. It's the seed, time decides the bloom. She shoved back her chair to stand, but he said, Sit. The single word carried the weight of kingdoms. Her legs folded before she realized, fury spiking as she obeyed. Alessandro exhaled slowly, tamping some inner wildfire. You have 2 choices, Aria. Accept an alliance that keeps you and your friend alive, your father solvent, your life gilded. Or or refuse and trigger a chain of retaliation you cannot imagine. Families will bleed. You might escape me, but war will hunt you. He picked up his wineglass, swirling crimson. I prefer peace. She stared at the flicker of candle flame dancing in the wine's surface. You call this peace. For you, yes, it will not always feel gentle, but peace rarely comes without cost. Her appetite vanished. And after 3 days, vows, rings, and then happily ever after. After 3 days, he said softly, we begin learning each other without shadows. She shook her head hard. You're delusional. He set the glass down untouched. If you cannot sleep, Enzo will bring something mild. Drugs? Lovely. Chamomile tea. I'll pass. A flicker of amusement. As you wish. He came around the table and offered his hand again. She clenched hers in her lap. Instead of forcing, he waited. Seconds stretched. Thunder rumbled distant beyond window panes. Finally, he dropped his hand to his side. Good night, Aria. She couldn't answer. Throat welded shut by fury and fear. Enzo reappeared as though conjured by thought. He escorted her back to the suite. At the door, he paused. I know you think him a monster, Enzo said quietly. Perhaps he is. But monsters keep worse monsters at bay. She shot him a glare. That's supposed to comfort me? It's supposed to keep you alive. He opened the door. Tomorrow may feel brighter. Or not. Depends on you. He left her alone with a lock click. Aria sagged against the wall. The room smelled faintly of lavender, sheets turned down. She walked to the balcony doors. Rain had stopped, leaving the gardens glistening under moonlight. Somewhere deep in the estate, music played again. Soft jazz this time. Unexpected. She pressed her palm to the cold glass, whispering Giana's name like a prayer. A flicker of movement below caught her eye. Alessandro crossing the patio alone, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled. Smoking a cigarette he seemed barely to taste. Smoke curled above him, ghost-white in moonlight. He stared up at her balcony, as if he knew she watched. Aria stepped back into the shadows, heart pounding. She touched the bandage on her arm, feeling the throb of every heartbeat there. Sharp, insistent. 3 days, he'd said, 3 days until vows. She remembered stories her grandmother told. Deals struck with demons could sometimes be unmade, but only if you out-tricked the devil. And devils loved nothing more than confident prey. She squared her shoulders, devoured the distance between the bed and desk, sat, and began to write a plan in the stationer's crisp pages. Not escape, impossible under stone and steel. Influence, subtle sabotage. Learn his routines, his guards' names, the codes they typed. She wrote until ink spotted her fingertips, until moonlight shifted, until her eyes burned. When exhaustion demanded surrender, she slid the notebook beneath the mattress, crawled into bed, and whispered a vow of her own. I will bend this cage into a key. Sleep stole over her softly, but in her dreams Alessandro's gaze waited, stormy and relentless, and she couldn't tell whether she was running from it or toward it. Soft steps in the hallway tugged Aria from uneasy dreams hours before dawn. She bolted upright, heart hammering, and slipped to the bedroom door. Voices floated from somewhere below. Alessandro's low timbre meeting Enzo's quieter responses. She pressed her ear to the wood. She's strong, Alessandro said. Stronger than I anticipated. You admire that, Enzo replied. I do. It makes this delicate. I want her trust before the ceremony. And if trust remains elusive, then I'll earn it after. Aria's pulse drummed. Earn, he said, as though kidnapping could be balanced like ledgers. She might attempt another escape, Enzo warned. She will, Alessandro answered. Double the night patrols, but do not chain her. She must never feel caged. A dry chuckle. Feel, perhaps, but she is. Semantics comfort no one, Alessandro said. Every wall on this estate is visible, The walls I want between us should be invisible. Aria backed away, unsettled by the contradiction in his tone, possessive yet oddly careful, like a sculptor planning where to chip and where to polish. Silence returned. She waited, breath shallow, until footsteps receded. When she risked opening the door a crack, the hall was empty. She stole to the sitting room and flipped on the lamp, revealing last night's notebook protruding from under the mattress. She slid it free and continued her notes, recording overheard words and sketching the pattern of guard rotation she'd watched from the balcony. A creak at the doorway, Aria snapped the notebook shut. Giana's hesitant voice drifted through her memory. Don't think about your father again. Maybe she needed her friend's voice louder than ever now. She found the desk phone tucked beside a leather-bound directory. No dial tone. Landlines here probably routed through a central switchboard Alessandro controlled. But if she could reach an outside line, even a voicemail ping might reveal her last location. She toyed with the cord, then returned the receiver to its cradle and paced. Dawn came in streaks of pale rose. At 6, the same wary housekeeper arrived with fresh towels and linens. Aria opened the door wider than necessary. You speak English? Aria asked softly. Enough, the woman whispered, glancing at the hallway camera. My friend Giana will be worried. Could you send a letter? The woman's eyes softened, but she shook her head, hands fluttering like small birds. Guard C, I lose job. Aria swallowed disappointment. Your name? Clara. Thank you, Clara, for kindness. Clara ducked her head and slipped away. Aria dressed herself in black jeans she'd found in the wardrobe. Someone had thought of everything, and tied her hair into a sleek braid. She studied her reflection. The scratches had faded to pink lines. Gauze still wrapped her forearm. She touched them, remembering Alessandro's careful hands. Annoyance sparked. Tenderness did not erase theft. A knock. Enzo again, punctual as sunrise. The Don invites you for coffee in the conservatory, he said. She followed him down a winding corridor of leaded glass that opened onto a vast greenhouse lush with bougainvillea, lemon trees, and the trickle of a koi pond. Alessandro waited near a wrought iron table, dark hair tousled as though he hadn't slept, sleeves rolled to expose corded forearms. Thank you, Enzo, he said. Enzo faded into foliage. Alessandro poured 2 cups. Aria stayed standing. He glanced at her jeans approvingly. Black suits you. It suits captives. I prefer guest. He handed her a cup. She took it. Heat seeped into her palms, at odds with her chill. They sat across from each other, a fan of morning sun spilling through glass overhead. Birds cheeped among citrus leaves. I overheard you last night, she said. You talk about trust while doubling guards. His mouth tilted. Eavesdropping already? Clever. You make it hard not to. Thin walls. Nothing here is thin, he said, gaze flicking to glass arching above. But even steel can transmit sound. Steel can bend, she murmured, echoing her midnight vow. He considered her. Tell me what you want, Aria. I want out. Impossible at present. Then I want Giana safe, and proof that you'll clear my father's debts. Alessandro reached into his jacket pocket and placed a folded legal document on the table. She hesitated, then opened it. An official stamp, signatures, one hers forged, she noted, and figures with more zeros than she could process. Paid in full, he said, and transferred yesterday. Her stomach tightened. You did it before I agreed to anything. I honor promises quickly, even ones you forced. Life forced them, not I. She slapped the folder shut. Life didn't drug me. For that, I apologize. She held his gaze. So unchain me. Let me walk free in the city. If your rivals are so dangerous, give me a bodyguard and a phone. Let me choose. His eyes drifted to the koi pond, reflective light dancing across his features. Choice is a luxury I can't afford you yet. Threats remain. Convenient threats. Real threats. He sighed. Your father's enemies know your name. They know your face. They want leverage against him or me. Either way, you bleed. She rubbed the bridge of her nose. And did you call him? He called me. He warned me you would misbehave. Alessandro shook his head in faint amusement. He doesn't know you at all. She looked at him sharply. You think you do? Better with each hour. He reached across the table. She flinched back. A muscle in his jaw tightened, but instead of touching her, he drew a small velvet box from his pants pocket. He pushed it forward. Open it, he said. She left it untouched. Tomorrow, he continued, you will wear that ring in a short legal ceremony in my private chapel. Witnesses, priest, signatures, nothing grand. Afterward, we fly to Florence. You are delusional. I'm determined. She shoved to her feet, coffee sloshing. You cannot dictate my heartbeat. I don't intend to. I intend to earn it. He stood as well, closing distance until his presence felt tidal, moving the very air. I will not touch you against your will, Aria. You have my word. Your word is worthless. Put it to the test. His voice dropped. Do you fear my touch, or your response to it? Heat speared through her chest. She hated that it answered for her in ways her tongue would never admit. She backed away, breath quick. Talk is over, she said. He inclined his head. For now. She turned and strode toward the exit. Enzo materialized to guide her, but she veered instead to a corridor lined with paintings. Enzo cleared his throat. Miss Rossi, the Don prefers you remain in public wings until trust is established. Tell him I prefer oxygen unless that's restricted too. Enzo almost smiled, then caught himself. I will relay your feedback. They returned her to the suite. As the door shut, Aria pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to banish the memory of Alessandro's nearness, warm cedar and espresso and the steady gravity of his voice. Mid-morning melted into afternoon. She reviewed her notes, cataloging the layout she'd glimpsed: conservatory to south, library west, chapel east wing near the courtyard. She circled chapel twice. A ceremony there meant gathering staff and maybe outside clergy. Comings and goings might open cracks in the armor of security. She tested the suite walls for hollows, found none. She pried the decorative vent with a butter knife, stolen from breakfast, too narrow even for an arm. She studied the balcony again, measuring drop to ground. Maybe 15 feet. Not fatal. Below lay gravel. No shrubs to cushion a fall, but at night, with rope. She tore the top sheet from a silk-lined wardrobe cover and began ripping it. The material fought, but her fury strengthened her. Hours later, she'd knotted a crude rope hidden under the bed. Evening shadows lengthened when a knock came. Clara, bearing a small stack of laundered clothes. Aria cracked the door wide, shielding the rope behind her leg. Thank you, Clara. Clara's voice dropped. Guards change at 2 after midnight. Cameras in West Garden off for maintenance tonight. 10 minutes, no power. Aria's eyes widened. Why are you telling me? Clara pressed a rosary to Aria's palm. Because I once lost freedom. Someone helped me. She stepped back, fear sparking. No, tell anyone. Aria's throat thickened. I won't. Clara hurried away. Aria closed the door and stared at the rosary beads glinting like tiny moons. Hope fluttered, fragile wings. She paced until dinner, energy buzzing. At 8, Enzo escorted her again, this time to a smaller fireside lounge. Alessandro stood by the hearth, studying a row of antique firearms mounted under glass. He turned, eyes trailing over her knee-length navy dress, the only piece she deemed practical for climbing. If he noticed her restless pulse, he didn't show it. Join me, he said, pouring wine. She sat in a high-back chair. He handed her a glass. She accepted, intending a pretense sip, but the vintage amazed her, warm plum sliding over her tongue before she remembered to protest. He lounged opposite, ankle over knee, bottle balanced on his thigh. Flames cast gold onto his profile. For a moment, conversation lapsed. She filled it. "My father taught me brand loyalty," she said. "Always the same winery from Sicily. You reached for Piedmont instead." "Your father values nostalgia. I value excellence. Nostalgia keeps history alive." "History is a tomb," he answered. "What matters is who stands above ground writing the next chapter." "Is that what you're doing with me, writing chapters?" "Yes," he said simply. "An epic." She released a shaky laugh. "You think yourself a hero?" "Never. Heroes die. I prefer survivor." "And me?" He lifted his glass in salute. "Protagonist." Heat fluttered through her stomach at the word. She masked it behind drink. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I want to show you something." He produced a white envelope and slid it across. Inside lay photographs of Giana laughing over coffee, of her closing a boutique late at night, a timestamp from yesterday. Aria went cold. "She is safe," he said. "Under discreet watch. If anything threatens her, my men intervene. Stop stalking her. She is the Achilles heel you pretend not to have. I protect my own weaknesses." Tears pricked, half anger, half relief. She threw the photos back. "You control everything." "Protection, not control. Spare me." She rose. "I'm done tonight." He didn't try to stop her. "Sleep well." In the suite, Aria waited for footsteps to fade, then counted minutes until hall lights dimmed to their night level. She retrieved the rope and tied one end to the carved bedpost, easing open the balcony doors. The garden glimmered under a three-quarter moon. Somewhere, music murmured again. Alessandro's nightly ritual, perhaps. She draped the rope over the railing, tugged hard. It held. A glance at the clock, 1:45. 10 minutes until the maintenance window, Clara promised. Aria donned flat shoes, tucked the rosary into her bra like a talisman, and swung one leg over the balustrade. Wind lifted her braid. She inhaled, hands sweaty on the rope. "Move." She eased down, feet scuffing stone. She dangled a moment, then dropped. Knees jolted, but she kept upright. She coiled the rope, stashed it beneath a hedge, and crept across the lawn toward the west wall. Clouds drifted, blotting moonlight. She whispered thanks. At 1:59, the garden lamps flickered. She pressed into shadow until they winked out. Darkness swallowed everything. She ran. Gravel muted under damp, mossy path. Hedges parted to reveal the side gate she'd used before, now chained. She felt along links, found the padlock, cursed. She backtracked to the wall where ivy climbed in thick strands. Footsteps. She froze behind the ivy, breath held, as two guards passed. Flashlights off because the power cut. They murmured about broken circuits, unaware she listened inside a curtain of leaves. They rounded a corner. Aria climbed, ivy scratching knees, sneakers slipping. She slapped her palm over a throb of pain, kept moving. Fingers found the top ledge. She hauled herself up, stomach scraping stone. On the far side lay the wooded slope, and headlights. A black SUV idled at the lane below, engine purring. Enzo leaned against the hood, arms folded. Moonlight returned, revealing his expression, both resigned and almost proud. Aria swore under her breath. Figures flanked him, not with guns raised, but waiting, unhurried. She balanced on the wall, panting. Enzo tipped his head as if greeting an equal. "That hurt?" he called. "Only my pride," she answered. "Oh, good, we'll patch it." "I don't want patching. You want survival, come down." She considered the opposite direction. Another patch of wall with maybe a drop into darkness and unknown terrain, possibly cliffs. If she ran, they'd chase, maybe shoot, maybe drag her back bleeding. The attempt itself was proof of Alessandro's point. Outside his estate, worse hunters roamed. Her breath clouded. Enzo lifted something glinting, her rosary. "Clara worries." Aria's throat clenched. They knew everything. She sat on the wall, legs dangling. Tell Alessandro I'm not broken yet. He already knows. She hopped down. Enzo caught her steady. The guards melted back into shadows. He opened the rear door for her. She slid inside, silent. The drive back up the lane felt longer. Inside the mansion, Enzo guided her not to the suite, but to the library. Alessandro waited by the hearth, music low, Chet Baker this time, trumpet languid. Aria stepped in, chin high. Do what you must. Alessandro's eyes swept her muddy shoes, scratched arms, the rosary twined around her fingers. What I must, he said, is ensure no harm finds you, and yet harm finds you by your own making. She opened her mouth to retort, but he moved first, closing distance, palms skimming her elbows. She stiffened. I promise not to touch against your will, he said quietly. Tell me to let go. She should. Every rational thought screamed it. But his hands were warm, unexpectedly gentle, offering steadiness, not restraint. The contrast to her wild heartbeat disarmed her. Why didn't you punish Clara, she whispered. Because I asked my staff to care for you, she followed her heart. Against you. Possibly for you. His thumbs brushed faint circles just above her elbow bone. She reminded me you're more than a strategy. Thunder of conflicting emotions flooded Aria. Anger, relief, something dangerously like gratitude. She lifted her gaze to his. Night's reflections danced in storm-gray irises. He stepped closer until her breath mingled with his. This cannot erase what you did, she said. It's not meant to erase, he replied. It's meant to begin. His mouth hovered inches away. The air quivered with tension more potent than chains. Aria found herself leaning a fraction, as if magnetized, before sense clawed back. She drew away. Beginning requires consent, she said. And hope, he agreed, releasing her arms. Hope you'll find tomorrow. She rubbed her elbows where his warmth lingered. I found the wall instead. And I found you. Something glimmered in his smile. Not triumph, but relief. She swallowed. If I walk back to my room, will you stop the guards tonight? I will post them farther away. Good. She cocked her head. You'll still marry a woman who hates you. I'll marry a woman I respect. He paused. Hatred can be educated. Friendship cannot be forced. Friendship will join us in time. He stepped aside, gesturing to the door like a gentleman escorting a ballroom partner. She passed, shoulders brushing, tension humming. Enzo escorted her once more, but at a respectful distance. Inside the suite, she showered off mud, changed into pajamas, and stood on the balcony, staring down at the gardens and wall. Guards now paced farther along the perimeter, barely visible. Alessandro's silhouette appeared at the library window, backlit by fire. He watched her for a long moment, raised a hand in acknowledgement, then turned away. Aria imagined the wedding band waiting in its velvet box. She touched the rosary at her throat, thoughts fluttering like trapped birds. Exhaustion dragged her to bed. She hid the torn sheet rope again, not surrendering, merely choosing a later battle. She lay awake, listening to distant jazz, pulse gradually matching that smoky rhythm. Sleep finally claimed her near dawn, and this time the gray-eyed ghost in her dreams no longer chased her. He simply stood beneath an olive tree, hand extended, the horizon behind him burning gold. When morning found her, she did not know whether she was running toward that horizon or bracing to set it on fire. Aria surfaced from turbulent dreams to the sound of rain whispering against French doors. For a moment she lay still, gathering the scattered threads of memory, ivy tearing under her hands, Enzo's disappointed silhouette, Alessandro's measured voice promising fewer guards yet keeping her enclosed. Every muscle ached, thighs bruised from her drop over the wall, shoulders tight from clutching the rope. She pushed herself upright and winced when her forearm pulled against the healing cut. A gentle knock tapped the suite door. Before she could respond, Clara peeked in, balancing a silver tray laden with a small pot of coffee. a plate of fruit, and a croissant shining beneath a brush of honey. Clara's eyes darted to the bruise blooming below Aria's collarbone. "The Don asked me to ensure you eat," Clara whispered, setting the tray on the low table beside an armchair. Her accent thickened around the words, anxiety nudging every consonant. "I'm not hungry," Aria said, though her stomach twisted with need. She hesitated, then touched Clara's wrist. "Thank you for last night and this. Please be careful. They'll punish you if they discover you helped me." Clara's gaze flicked toward the hallway, then back. "They know I gave you the maintenance time. The Don questioned me, but he only warned me. He said kindness is not disloyalty as long as it does not endanger you." Aria's eyebrows shot up. "He said that?" Clara nodded, eyes earnest. "He told me to serve you with respect." "Respect?" Aria echoed, bitterness eroding the word. She exhaled. "Clara, could you please find out if my friend Giana is safe? She lives in Milan, runs a boutique. I haven't spoken to her since—" She spread her hands helplessly. Clara inhaled as if to argue, but instead gave a small sympathetic nod. "I will try." She slipped from the room, leaving Aria alone with the breakfast tray and a mind racing between despair and raw determination. Aria lifted the coffee pot and poured, letting the steam brush her face. The first sip was velvet on her tongue, and despite her revolt, she ate half the croissant, more out of a need for strength than comfort. She needed clarity for whatever battle came next. Minutes later, the lock clicked and Alessandro entered without knocking, flanked by Enzo. Alessandro wore dark slacks and a midnight blue dress shirt open at the throat, sleeves rolled twice, revealing the ridges of tendons along his forearms. His gaze traveled over her bruises with a physician's accuracy before meeting her eyes. "I hoped you would rest," he said, voice steady as a metronome. "I did." Aria folded her arms, ignoring the fresh flare of soreness in her shoulders. "Rest in captivity." A shadow crossed his expression. "I will not apologize for preventing you from bleeding in a ditch. Our rivals circle closer every hour." "There's always a storm outside the walls, isn't there?" She shot back. "How convenient that I never get to see it for myself." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "We'll return to that argument when you've healed. For now, you and I have another matter to address." He glanced at Enzo, who opened the door wider. Footsteps approached, measured, familiar in their arrogance. Aria's heart stuttered as her father stepped inside, smoothing a charcoal coat over his still broad shoulders. Lorenzo Rossi carried an umbrella despite the corridors connecting the villa wings, each step broadcasting the unaffected confidence of a man whose debts had always been someone else's burden. His salt and pepper hair was combed back, eyes sharp and assessing as they swept the suite, then settled on her. "My bella ragazza." He spread his arms as if expecting her to rush forward. "Your Alessandro has kept you in luxury, I see." Aria stiffened. Alessandro, standing just inside the doorway, motioned to Enzo. The right-hand man retreated, closing the door and stationing himself outside. It was an oddly intimate arrangement, Alessandro allowing the conversation but guarding its boundaries. "My Alessandro," Aria repeated, voice brittle. "Is that what you call him now?" Lorenzo smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "Why scorn me, child? I have secured your future." "You sold it," she said, rising to full height, though the robe she wore felt suddenly frail. "You traded my life to wash your blood-stained hands." He waved a dismissive hand. "Drama, you exaggerate." Alessandro cleared his throat. "Lorenzo, speak plainly." Lorenzo shrugged. "Very well. Aria, debts rise and fall like tides. You know I prefer the high water mark. Your marriage binds our families. It ensures your safety. It grants you status beyond a Rossi daughter attending art galleries." Aria took a step forward, voice vibrating. "You never asked what I wanted." "There was no need. A father knows best." She felt something inside her splinter at those words. Memories of ballet lessons she never liked. Dates arranged with sons of allies she'd despised. every choice disguised as paternal care. Her fingers curled. You used to call me your Stella, your star, now I'm a ledger entry. Lorenzo sighed. Stars fade, Cara. Alliances keep shining. Alessandro shifted, arms folded. You've delivered your speech. Perhaps it is time you left us. Lorenzo's brows lifted. I'll leave when my daughter assures me she accepts her role. I will never accept it, Aria said. Her father's jaw hardened. Defiance looks ugly on you. Then stop looking, she snapped. His nostrils flared, but he schooled his expression. Fine, but know that your stubbornness jeopardizes everything. Alessandro keeps you breathing because he sees potential, but others in the council grow impatient. Your compliance eases fear. Rebellion feeds it. Alessandro cut in, tone glacial. Threats are unnecessary. Lorenzo barked a laugh. Spoken like a man already under her spell. Listen, daughter. If you refuse, you will still be bound to him by the contract you forged with my signature. At least with ceremony, you gain legitimacy. A crown on your head rather than chains at your ankles. Aria swallowed the burn in her throat. I'd rather walk barefoot through fire than accept your gilded crown. Stubborn, Lorenzo repeated, sighing. Very well. He turned to Alessandro. Make her see reason. She has your mother's eyes, tired of fighting but burning with pride. He adjusted his coat. Call me when she's ready. Aria felt the urge to break something, to shatter glassware just to hear it scream with her. Instead, she said, One last question, Papa. Did you hesitate even once? Lorenzo paused at the door, the faintest flicker of discomfort in his gaze. Hesitation is a luxury fathers cannot afford. He walked out, not looking back. Silence filled the suite, expanding to the corners. Aria's chest heaved. Alessandro remained by the door, shoulders squared, watching her warily. I misjudged. I thought facing him might bring closure. Closure requires honesty, she whispered. That was gaslighting. He stepped closer, voice low. I will not let him hurt you again. A sharp laugh escaped her. Physical pain is nothing compared to what he just did. Alessandro's face tightened. I'm sorry. Sorry? She raked a hand through her hair. A four-letter word can't fix decades of manipulation. He swallowed. I know. She met his gaze, surprised by the naked remorse there. For a heartbeat, she saw past the Don, the ruthless strategist, to the man beneath, fallible and raw. It startled her more than her father's callousness. Aria turned away, pacing to the balcony doors, pressing her palm to the cold glass. Rain blurred the world outside. I need air. I'll accompany you. I need solitude. His reflection in the glass showed him hesitate, then nod once. Very well. I'll have guards at a distance. She spun. Your answer to everything, guards and walls, does it ever weigh on you? Every hour. The confession slipped out quiet as a sigh. He straightened. But until threats disappear, walls stand. Maybe you and those threats are two sides of the same coin, she muttered. Alessandro inclined his head, accepting the insult without rebuttal. I'll give you an hour. Then I'd like you to join me for coffee. Coffee? She scoffed. Oh, we just had coffee. This time on neutral ground, the greenhouse, no decisions, just conversation. She considered refusing, but remembered the way her father's words had left a cavity in her chest. Maybe conversation would distract. Maybe it would clarify. 1 hour, she said. He left without further argument. The door clicked softly behind him. Aria exhaled shakily and pressed her forehead to the glass again. Rain smeared over her reflection until she looked like a ghost, trapped in water. She closed her eyes, letting the muffled hush seep into her bones. She didn't know how long she remained that way, but eventually the need to move drove her toward the wardrobe. She chose slim black pants and a slate gray sweater, dressing quickly, braiding her hair tight at the nape. She wanted nothing flowy or delicate, nothing that felt like acceptance of this gilded cage. Her body armor would be simplicity and control. There was time before meeting Alessandro. She opened the small bureau beside the bed, pulling out the notebook she had hidden, flipping through pages of frantic scrawls, guard schedules, shift overlaps, gate codes overheard. Lorenzo's betrayal called for an upgrade to her plan. Stop reacting, start manipulating. New entry: use father's visit to pressure Alessandro. Leverage guilt. Gain privileges. Phone call, laptop, supervised trip to Florence maybe. Every concession, a stepping stone. She heard footsteps and tucked the notebook away. Clara's voice floated through the door. Signora Rossi. Aria opened the door a few inches. Please, come in. Clara slipped inside, eyes red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. I spoke to your friend Giana. She is safe, but worried. I couldn't say where you are. A surge of relief washed through Aria. Thank you. Did you tell her I'm alive? Yes, she asked for proof, but I couldn't give more. Aria clasped Clara's hands. It's enough, you risked so much. Clara's lips quivered. The Don ordered new locks on servant entries. He intends to tighten security. I don't know when I can help again. Aria squeezed her fingers. You've already done more than you know. Clara nodded, looked over her shoulder as if expecting guards, then hurried out. Aria inhaled, squared her shoulders, and left the suite. 2 guards stationed outside turned, flanking her as she walked the familiar hall toward the greenhouse corridor. She ignored them, head high. The greenhouse loomed bright under leaded panes, condensation blurring the sky. Alessandro stood near the koi pond, feeding specks of bread to the white-tipped fish. He wore no jacket, just the rolled-sleeve shirt from earlier, dark fabric clinging to his frame. A faint lilac fragrance from blooming wisteria hung in the damp air. He turned at her approach. Thank you for coming. I'm not here for thanks. She folded her arms, though the humid warmth pressed close. 1 hour, you said? He gestured to a wrought iron bench facing a small citrus tree heavy with tiny oranges. She hesitated, then perched at one end. He took the opposite side. Raindrops tap-danced on the glass roof. Alessandro braced his forearms on his knees, gaze exploring the plants instead of her. I thought coffee might be neutral. It was my mother's daily ritual. She said shared coffee breeds honesty. Your mother believed in honesty in your world? She tried, the world rarely reciprocated. Aria waited, unwilling to bridge the silence. He continued, voice softer. She was sold in a marriage contract at 17, same as the arrangement your father proposes. My father was not cruel, but he was a strategist. She learned to wield influence by listening, by trading kindness for loyalty. She taught me empathy is as dangerous as any gun. Aria's brows drew together. Empathy doesn't seem your weapon of choice. You're alive. He met her eyes unwavering. That is empathy. A more ruthless man would have broken your legs to stop you climbing walls. Her breath hitched, but she refused to look away. You think mercy is a leash I should thank you for? I think mercy is the beginning of trust, and she almost laughed. Trust felt like shards in her throat. Trust requires choice. So does respect, he said. I respect your resilience, your refusal to bend. I admire it. Admire it enough to set me free? That's a price my enemies would exploit. She rubbed the gauze on her forearm. Always the enemies. He studied the bandage. Does it still hurt? She shrugged. Pain reminds me I'm real. A shadow crossed his features. He sat back, one arm draped along the bench. Your father's cruelty toward you surprised me. You do business with him and didn't know? I know his sins. I thought his love for you was genuine. It never was, she said quietly. It was ownership. Alessandro's profile hardened. If you were mine by choice, I would die before letting anyone hurt you. Her pulse skipped both at the words and the stark certainty behind them. She swallowed. Words are easy. Dying is easier than living with someone's anger. His gaze returned to her. Then let me live with yours. She blinked. Is that some vow? It's a promise. He rose. And perhaps the only promise I can make until you see the danger for yourself. She stood as well, tension crackling between them like static. Show me then. Show me these enemies. His jaw flexed. When the time comes, you'll see enough. Maybe tonight, she said, not knowing why she pushed. He lifted an eyebrow. Perhaps. A sudden dull boom reverberated through the greenhouse, distant but strong enough to make the koi scatter. Aria's heart jerked. Alessandro turned, scanning the glass ceiling. Another boom sounded. Closer, like a door slamming under enormous force. Guards rushed in from the corridor, radios crackling. Perimeter breach, one said, voice urgent. West Garden Gate compromised. Alessandro's expression shuddered, steel over water. He faced Aria. Stay with Enzo. Enzo jogged in, weapon drawn. He moved to Aria's side, one hand on her elbow. What's happening? Aria demanded. Trouble, Alessandro said, already striding toward the door, drawing a matte black pistol from a hidden holster beneath his shirt. Aria's throat constricted. Don't go alone. He paused long enough to meet her gaze. Protect me by staying alive. Then he disappeared into the corridor, 2 guards chasing. Enzo guided her through a side door. Adrenaline stung Aria's limbs. She glanced back at the greenhouse, at the wisteria swaying gently. The air hummed with impending violence. Enzo hustled Aria through a service corridor that ran behind the conservatory walls, every step echoing against marble, because neither of them dared speak above a whisper. An emergency siren began to pulse somewhere deeper in the estate, low, two-tone, meant more to coordinate guards than to panic residents. The air smelled of orange blossoms and cordite, an impossible mix that made Aria's stomach lurch. Where are we going? She hissed, ducking as Enzo yanked her beneath a crossbeam and past a narrow window that overlooked the west garden. Through the glass she saw flashes of muzzle fire ricochet between trimmed hedges, guards shouting in Italian, an intruder dressed in black vaulting a stone balustrade before crumpling under a guard's shot. The sight froze her blood, but fear for Alessandro burned hotter than horror. To the safe hallway north of the library, Enzo answered, short of breath. Bulletproof, reinforced doors, no windows. No, she said, digging in her heels. Alessandro is out there. And he'll stay alive if he's not distracted by trying to protect you. He'll get himself killed. Enzo whipped around, grabbing her shoulders, his eyes, usually calm, flickered with something raw. He would die for you. Don't make him prove it tonight. A metallic clang shook the outer wall, maybe a breaching charge or a vehicle slamming gates. Aria swallowed a cry. She imagined Alessandro stepping into open ground, his profile carved against muzzle flashes, the blue shirt blooming crimson. It hurt to even think it. But hiding while he bled felt worse. A decision sparked. She shoved Enzo's hands aside. I won't be a pawn they can steal to control him. Let me stay hidden near the action. If those men reach me, Alessandro loses. If I stay beside you, I'm just a prize for them to grab. Enzo hesitated. Another burst of automatic fire rattled windows. What do you suggest? Bring me to a vantage point where I'm protected yet watching. If things go wrong, I run to medical with him. But if he's hurt, I can drag him to safety faster than any guard weighed down by body armor. He studied her, then nodded curtly. Fine. Observation gallery above the library overlooks the courtyard fight line. Reinforced glass. Follow. Quickly. They darted down the corridor, turned a spiral staircase, and emerged onto a slender mezzanine lined with art pieces. The glass wall across from them faced the central courtyard. Outside, rain turned firefight smoke into smeared gray curtains. Motion sensors had triggered flood lamps, exposing black-clad intruders weaving between statues. Alessandro's guards fired from defensive alcoves. Gunshots snapped, sharp as breaking bones. Lightning flashed, nature's strobe, painting the courtyard in harsh white panes. Aria pressed her palms to the cool glass. She spotted Alessandro near the fountain, flanked by two of his men. Carmine-colored blood streaked one guard's sleeve, but Alessandro moved with deliberate calm, issuing hand signals. Thunder growled and rain hammered, turning marble slick. Across the courtyard, a figure with a scoped rifle stepped from behind a cypress. The muzzle lifted toward Alessandro's back. "Down!" Aria shouted through the glass, pounding so hard her knuckles stung. Alessandro turned. Too late. The rifle barked, a single cracking shot. Alessandro jerked sideways, clutching his left shoulder. Guards returned fire. The sniper spun, collapsing against the cypress, head snapping back in a spray that made Aria gag. Alessandro stayed on his feet, staggering, blood already spilling dark down his arm. "Let me go to him," she begged Enzo, voice breaking. "He's hit." "Stay here," Enzo ordered, eyes wide but calculating. He spoke into a radio, rapid fire. "Il don ferito nel cortile. Squadra medica adesso." He met Aria's gaze. "Medical teams on the way." He could bleed out before they reach him. That courtyard's exposed. She slapped the glass again. Alessandro waved his men back toward the colonnade, blood dripping from his sleeve to rain-wet stone. More intruders crashed through a side gate. Alessandro pivoted, firing his pistol one-handed, covering his guard's retreat. Enzo cursed and spun, leading her downstairs. They barreled through the western arch into the library's lower level. Smoke drifted in from shattered windows, carrying the acrid scent of gunpowder. Two guards stationed at the arch nodded to Enzo and opened the interior doors, letting him into a side hall that ended at a service loading bay. The bay door rattled violently, someone outside trying to force it. An explosive clamped to a hinge glowed cherry red. Enzo muttered a curse. "Detour," he snapped, steering Aria back the way they came. "Courtyard is compromised on ground level. We'll flank behind the atrium stair, low profile." They ducked through a storage closet, emerged into a gardener's tunnel thick with fertilizer smell, then climbed a narrow servant's stairwell that opened directly into the colonnade adjoining the courtyard's east side. Gunfire had slowed. Many intruders lay motionless on marble, rain washing crimson into drains. Alessandro knelt now, braced against the fountain base, pistol slack on the broken tile beside him. His breathing looked ragged. One of his men ripped fabric from his own shirt, pressing it to Alessandro's shoulder, but crimson soaked through fast. Aria dashed forward before Enzo could stop her. She vaulted over a toppled urn, splashing through a puddle to reach Alessandro. His eyes found hers, stormy and pain-glazed, yet fiercely alert. "I told you to stay safe," he rasped, forcing a half-smile even as blood slicked his jawline. "Your definition of safe stinks," she shot back, dropping to her knees. Rain plastered her braid to her spine, but warmth from his body blurred out the chill. "This needs pressure." She tore the sleeve from her sweater without hesitation, wadded it and pressed it over the wound. He hissed but stayed still. Enzo knelt opposite, scanning perimeters with his pistol. "Medical teams 2 minutes out." Alessandro's uninjured hand found Aria's wrist. "You shouldn't be here." "I shouldn't be anywhere near you, remember?" She concentrated on pressing hard enough to staunch bleeding. Blood seeped between her fingers, turning rainwater pink. "Hold still." He laughed, an impossibly soft, bleak sound. "Yes, ma'am." Sirens, louder now, announced the estate paramedics. But another shadow leapt atop the western balustrade, an intruder somehow skipping perimeter sweeps. He raised an Uzi, aiming straight at the kneeling trio. Aria saw the muzzle flare. Instinct drove her to slam her body into Alessandro's uninjured side, knocking him flat. She heard bullets ping stone. Enzo fired twice, 2 sharp cracks. The intruder pitched backward over the railing, gun clattering. Silence rushed in, broken only by Alessandro's ragged breaths and rain pattering on shattered tiles. Moments later, medics flooded the courtyard, pushing a wheeled stretcher. Enzo waved them forward. Aria reluctantly eased pressure, letting a medic apply compression gauze and slide a tourniquet above Alessandro's bicep. The lead medic, sweat plastering hair to his forehead despite rain, spoke rapidly to Alessandro in an Italian dialect Aria barely caught. References to arterial damage, need for surgery. Alessandro nodded once, gaze never leaving Aria. "I'll be fine," he said, voice low. "Thank you for shielding me." "You'll ruin this courtyard if you keep bleeding on it," she answered, throat tight. He caught her hand, squeezing. Rain chilled their joined fingers. "Don't leave the villa tonight." "I'm not the one who wandered into gunfire." His lips twitched, but pain tightened the rest of his face. Medics lifted him. He hissed, but still didn't let go until the last second. Aria watched them wheel him toward the mansion, heart pounding under adrenaline's tail. She tried to stand, but dizziness swayed her. Enzo seized her elbow. "You good?" he asked, scanning her for hits. "I'm fine," she breathed. "Just, he needs me." Surprising herself, she added, "I want to be there." Enzo's surprise flashed, but he nodded. "Stay behind me." They followed the medics through a side door leading to the estate's private clinic. Fluorescent lighting hummed overhead. A surgeon in green scrubs met them, gloved hands raised, barking orders. Alessandro disappeared behind swinging doors. Enzo guided Aria to a small waiting chamber lined with leather chairs. Her rain-soaked clothes adhered unpleasantly. She looked down. Streaks of his blood glazed her palm, under her nails. A tremor coursed through her, shock delayed by action. Enzo offered a towel. She wiped shaking hands. "Thank you," he said suddenly. "For what?" "For saving him." She met his gaze, startled by the visible gratitude. "Wasn't thinking. Just moved." Enzo's mouth lifted in the faintest smile. Sometimes instinct tells truth our minds deny. He gestured to a side hall. "There's a restroom, linen closet. Change out of those wet clothes before you freeze. I'll find replacements." Aria nodded numbly. She stripped in the small restroom, scrubbing Alessandro's blood from her skin until water ran clear. She stared at her reflection, wet hair ragged, eyes wide and shaken, but alive. Heat flushed her cheeks. That instinctive leap covering him had come from a place deeper than duty or self-preservation. It worried her more than the bullet. Enzo appeared with a folded gray t-shirt and soft drawstring pants. Closest options. Might be big. "Thank you," she whispered. She dressed quickly. The t-shirt bore Alessandro's scent, sandalwood and bergamot, making her pulse race. She returned to the waiting area. Enzo offered her a phone. "Secure line, no outside calls, but you can speak with Clara or me. The surgery might last an hour." Aria sat clutching the phone unused. Silence pressed heavy. Enzo excused himself to coordinate cleanup. Her foot jiggled, nerves on fire. She needed purpose. Crossing to a glass door, she peered into the operating suite. Through misted panels, she glimpsed surgeons around the table. Alessandro's arm splayed. Bright lamps illuminating the wound, machines beeping in steady rhythms. She pressed a hand to the glass, whispering nonsense. "Stay, breathe, don't you dare leave me." She startled at her own words. When had he become worth such prayer? Time dragged, minutes puddling into an hour. Finally, the lead surgeon emerged, peeling off gloves. He spoke reassuringly. Bullet passed through muscle, missed artery by centimeters, tore but did not sever tendon. Alessandro would keep full mobility after recovery. Risk of infection, but prognosis good. He'd be waking soon, sedated lightly for pain. Relief buckled Aria's knees. She sank into a chair. Enzo returned, offering coffee that tasted like burned sugar but steadied her pulse. "He's asking for you," the surgeon said a bit later. Enzo's eyebrows lifted. Aria set aside the coffee and followed the surgeon into a recovery room where Alessandro lay half reclined, bandaged arm immobilized in a sling across his chest. His eyes fluttered open, hazy, with medication, but focused. She approached cautiously. "You stubborn man." He managed a crooked smile. "I prefer resilient." She perched on the edge of the bed, fingers twisting the hem of his t-shirt she wore. You scared me. His uninjured hand brushed her wrist. You protected me twice. Habit I should break. Emotion thickened her voice. How do you feel? Like a bull took a bite. He grimaced. But seeing you helps. His gaze drifted over the t-shirt. Looks better on you. She blushed, then cleared her throat. Your surgeon says you'll recover fully. Good, can't rule New York in a sling forever. His attempt at humor wobbled, but she smiled despite herself. A soft knock. Enzo stepped in, nodding to Alessandro. Everything secure. Site cleared. 23 intruders. 12 dead. 9 captured. 2 escaped into the forest. We're sweeping with dogs. Alessandro's expression hardened. Interrogate the captured. I want names. Enzo hesitated, glancing at Aria. Now? Now, Alessandro said. Enzo departed. Aria studied his face. Pale under the medication, but eyes alight with fierce focus. Can't you rest for 5 minutes? A Don never rests, he murmured. But you should. You're trembling. She hadn't noticed, but her hands shook. He intertwined his fingers with hers, warmth seeping into her skin. You're safe, he said. Tears pricked unexpectedly. You bled all over your courtyard. That's not safe. I've bled worse, might he joke softly, but his thumb stroked the back of her hand in comforting circles. Silence settled, intimate despite monitors beeping. I should hate you, she whispered. Part of me still does. He nodded, eyes heavy-lidded. Part of me deserves it. She leaned closer, drawn by gravitational pull neither understood. And yet, he repeated, voice a breath. Their faces hovered inches apart, her pulse hammering. His gaze flicked to her lips, hers mirrored. She could feel his exhale brush her cheek, warm and uncertain. She closed the gap almost until logic wrenched her back. She rested her forehead against his instead, breathing him in. I can't, she murmured. Whether can't meant hate or kiss, she scarcely knew. His hand tightened around hers. I can wait. She straightened, swallowing the tremor in her heartbeat. Rest, Alessandro. Let your men handle the rest tonight. He nodded, eyes fluttering. Medication pulled him toward sleep. As he drifted, he whispered, Thank you, Aria. So softly she wondered if she'd imagined it. She remained by the bed until his breathing deepened into a steady rhythm. Then she rose, padded to the doorway, and looked back. Moonlight poured through the window, casting silver across his sleeping form. The bandage on his shoulder seemed stark against the sheet, a reminder of what devotion, chosen or not, could cost. She pressed a hand to her own heart, feeling it beat unfamiliar patterns, then slipped into the dim hallway, heading for her suite. She needed to think, to reconcile the man who chained her fate with the man who bled for her. As she walked the silent corridor, Alessandro's whispered gratitude echoed in her ears, louder than any siren. Aria reached her suite just after 4 a.m, the hallway smelling of bleach and damp stone where staff had scrubbed away blood. She stepped inside and closed the door carefully, as though any sudden sound might shatter her fragile composure. The room greeted her with dim lamplight. Someone had turned on the bedside reading lamp while she was gone. A tray of chamomile tea sat untouched on the low table, steam long since faded. She imagined Clara sneaking in and out like a worried ghost. She peeled off Alessandro's borrowed t-shirt and pants, folding them neatly even though rain and courtyard grime streaked the fabric. In the bathroom, she turned the water hot, letting it thrum across her shoulders until the mirror fogged and her skin flushed pink. She washed away gunpowder residue that clung to her hair, and the faint metallic scent of blood lodged under her nails. When she finally wrapped herself in a thick robe, there was no escaping the echo of Alessandro's collapsing weight. The hiss of his pain, the warmth of his blood against her palm. She sat on the bed with damp hair dripping down her spine and lifted her notebook, meaning to update escape routes. Instead, her pen hovered over the page, refusing to move. Tonight the estate's walls had proved both prison and fortress. Outside them lurked men who would have killed her just to injure Alessandro. The logic of escape dimmed beneath the raw fact that safety was relative, and Alessandro's enemies had no rules. A sudden knock jarred her. She opened the door a crack. Clara stood with a fresh set of pajamas and a sealed envelope. "You should sleep," Clara whispered. Her gaze traveled over Aria's damp hair and tired eyes. "But first this." Aria accepted the envelope and clothing. "Is he still in recovery?" "They moved him to his bedroom an hour ago. The doctor will stay through dawn." "Thank you," Aria said, meaning more than the words could hold. Clara lingered, worry creasing her brow. "The Don asked me to give you that when you returned." She pointed to the envelope. "Said it's personal." Aria nodded. Clara slipped away. Aria shut the door and sat again, staring at the envelope as if it might detonate. She broke the seal. Inside lay a single sheet of thick paper, handwritten in precise strokes. "Aria, if this reaches you, I'm alive and you are safe. Nothing matters more. I regret bringing violence to your door, yet leaving you unguarded would be a greater sin. Someday I hope you will see the difference. Rest tonight. At sunrise, if you wish, come to the garden terrace. I'll have Giana on a secure video call, unmonitored but recorded for your protection and mine. One step toward trust." She let the note fall to her lap. Giana. A real conversation, not a message filtered through Clara. Part of her wanted to scream yes at the silent air. Another part feared what Giana might hear in her voice, how the edges of hatred had eroded. Exhaustion finally pulled her under. She changed into the pajamas, slid between sheets still carrying faint lavender from last night's turn-down service, and closed her eyes. Sleep came in fragmented waves. A corridor of smoke where Alessandro's hand slipped from hers, her father's voice calling her stubborn, Clara's rosary beads clinking like chains. She woke to soft gray light leaking around the drapes. Rain had slackened, leaving the world outside hushed and clean. She glanced at the clock on the dresser. 6:15. Her pulse sped up. In 45 minutes, Alessandro would be waiting on the terrace, shoulder freshly bandaged, offering her Giana's voice like a gift. She dressed quickly in black leggings and a pale blue sweater Clara had left folded on the chair. She considered braiding her hair, but left it loose, damp ends curling at her collarbone. Before walking out, she opened the notebook. She wrote one line beneath the night's scribbles. "Trust is transactional. Negotiate." In the corridor, 2 guards shadowed her steps yet kept respectful distance. She realized she knew them by name now, Marco and Franco. Knowledge gained unintentionally, intimacy through repetition. They escorted her down a staircase that opened onto the second-floor terrace facing east. The terrace overlooked manicured lawns puddled from storm runoff. Morning sun strained through retreating clouds, casting pink gold slivers over wet marble. Alessandro sat on a cushioned chaise, sling snug across his chest, a thick charcoal blanket draped over his lap. A laptop rested on a low table beside a single steaming cup of espresso. He looked up, relief softening the hard set of his mouth. "Good morning." "You should be resting," she said. "I am. Doctor insists this chair counts as bed rest if I don't move." He gestured to the terrace's far side where Enzo stood at discreet distance, phone in hand, conversing in hushed Italian. "We're ready for Giana." Aria's heartbeat fluttered. She crossed to the table, noticing how pale Alessandro's skin remained. She perched on a chair opposite him, drumming fingers on her knee. He slid the laptop toward her and tapped a key. The screen glowed to life, a secure conferencing window opening. After a moment, Giana's face filled the frame, eyes puffy from worry but waving excitedly. "Aria?" Giana leaned so close her curls blurred the camera. "Is that really you?" Aria's throat tightened. "It's me. I'm okay." "Okay?" Giana's gaze flicked sideways at Alessandro's barely visible shoulder, bandaged. Are you safe? Where are you? What did they do to you? Alessandro spoke before Aria could. She's safe here, Signora Russo. I arranged this call so you can see she's well cared for. Giana's brow slashed downward. Well cared for? She vanished from her apartment. Her phone died. Her father dodged my calls. Now you, whoever you are, show her on a screen, like proof of life ransom video. I'm Alessandro Moretti, he said calmly, and Aria is free to speak. Aria touched the keyboard. Guy, listen. Things moved fast. They're complicated, but I'm not hurt. Yet, Giana snapped. Oh, why can't you leave? Aria's eyes flicked to Alessandro. He kept silent, gaze steady on the horizon. She inhaled. Because there are threats outside, and inside this place is complicated. Giana rubbed her forehead. Are you brainwashed? This is kidnapping. I can call the police. Alessandro answered, voice level. Police cannot help against the organizations involved. However, if Aria wishes, she may ask you to take steps. The choice is hers. Aria felt the weight of that statement. Guy, I'm choosing to stay for now. I need to sort things out. Please trust me. Giana exhaled sharply. I trust you, not him. She glared through the camera. But if anything happens to her, Moretti, I will make it my life's mission to burn your empire down. Alessandro actually smiled, faint but sincere. Noted. Giana's shoulders slumped. Your eyes are tired, Aria. Promise you'll call again. I will. A surge of emotion closed Aria's throat. I love you, Guy. Love you too. The call ended. The screen went black. Aria closed the laptop slowly. Alessandro massaged his temple with 2 fingers. Your friend is formidable. She's family. Aria looked at him. Thank you for arranging that. His lashes lowered, hiding relief. Trust requires proof. A silence grew, yet it was not heavy. Beyond the terrace, sparrows shook water from feathers, chirping in sudden sunlight. Aria saw frost-pale bruises along Alessandro's knuckles, darkened from punching intruders perhaps, and realized he must be in pain. Did you sleep? She asked. Little painkillers help. Doctor said you need rest. He chuckled softly. You've taken up her cause. She shifted. You risked your life last night. I need clarity. If you died, everything here would fall into chaos? Likely, rivals would exploit the vacuum. And me? Used, forced into another alliance, or killed. He didn't soften the words. The chill crawled over her skin despite morning warmth. Then I owe you my life. He flinched. You owe me nothing. My choices brought the bullet. Protecting you brings purpose. Purpose. She turned that word over like a stone. What now? We rebuild security, hunt those who escaped, and you recover from the shock. Her laugh came bitter. Shock is becoming baseline. I can offer a change of scenery, he said carefully. My villa on the lake has fewer walls, fewer guards. We'd delay the ceremony until you feel. He flexed fingers over the sling. Until you see danger is not the only reason I want you near. Yet danger follows you, she pointed out. True. He shifted, pain tightening his jaw. But I can show you the world beyond these gates without shackles. A day trip. You choose the destination. She studied him. And the guards? Essential but invisible. The idea tempted her more than she expected. Let me think. He nodded, accepting. They sat for a while without speaking, watching clouds part over distant hills. The peace felt fragile, stitched together by exhaustion and a bullet's lesson. At last, Alessandro winced, shifting awkwardly. You should lie down, she said. He sighed. Doctor will scold me again. Good. She rose. I'll walk you back. Enzo stepped forward, but Alessandro waved him off. Aria offered her arm. Alessandro slid his uninjured hand through the crook, allowing her to support him. Together they crossed the terrace, following the corridor toward his private wing. Each step carried a quiet intimacy, shared silence, matching pace, the light brush of his fingers along her forearm. At his bedroom door, he stopped. "Thank you," he said, voice husky. She helped him settle on the bed. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting gold on the floor. The room smelled of cedar, linen, and sterile antiseptic from fresh bandages. Aria poured water into a glass, guiding it to his lips. He drank, eyes never leaving her face. She set the glass down, heartbeat steady, but fast. "I'll let you rest," she turned to go. "Stay." The word was soft, almost unsure. She looked back. He lay against pillows, features pale and vulnerable in daylight. The ruthless Don had become a wounded man, asking not for allegiance, but company. She walked to the chair beside the bed and sat. He closed his eyes. Minutes ticked. Rain had stopped, and the only sounds were distant footsteps of staff and the rhythmic beep of a monitor tracking his pulse. He drifted toward sleep. When his breathing deepened, she allowed her gaze to trace the lines of his face. Strong jaw, faint stubble, lashes dark against pale skin. She reached out, almost brushing hair off his forehead, but stopped herself. Instead, she folded her hands, staring at them. Part of her still whispered run. Another part whispered stay. Between those voices lay a narrow bridge built of last night's blood and this morning's fragile trust. Later, a soft knock preceded Clara entering with fresh bandages. She smiled at Aria, then tended Alessandro with gentle efficiency. He didn't wake. Clara whispered, "He'll sleep hours." Aria stood. "I'll be nearby." In the hall, she found Enzo conferring with Marco. He paused, meeting her gaze. "We appreciate you saving him." "He saved me first." She hesitated. "Will the council attack again?" "They'll regroup, but last night cost them." Enzo's eyes were tired. "Still, caution remains." Aria nodded, then walked back to her suite. She sat at the desk, opened her notebook, and on a fresh page wrote, "Reasons to stay. 1. Giana safe as long as I remain. 2. Rivals willing to kill me to hurt him. 3. Alessandro's promise of choice. Reasons to leave. 1. Freedom cannot bloom in captivity. 2. Father's betrayal doesn't bind me to new chains. 3. Fear of losing myself." She stared at the lists. The first category felt heavier, weighted by human lives, by bullets and blood. The second felt lighter, almost fragile. A gentle chime sounded from the suite phone. She answered. Giana's voice flowed through, calmer. "I thought you might need to hear a friend again," Giana said. Aria closed her eyes. "Tell me something normal." "Marco asked me to dinner." "Marco?" "The barista with the sleeve tattoos." "Oh." Aria smiled. "Say yes." "My yes depends on you staying alive." "I'm trying." Giana exhaled. "You sound different, softer." Aria pictured Alessandro sleeping, the subtle weight of his fingers on hers. "I'm tired, but I'm still me." "Good, be careful, and remember who you are." "I remember," Aria said, hoping it was true. After hanging up, she returned to the notebook, drew a line through reasons to leave. She wrote, "Reason to stay that matters. Find out if love can grow where freedom hasn't yet taken root." The admission startled her. She set the pen down, staring at the words until they blurred. She didn't know where this path led, only that last night's bullet had cracked something open. Fear, loathing, and oddly, possibility. Evening shadows lengthened. At dusk, Clara arrived with dinner. Aria sent the tray to Alessandro instead and walked the moonlit corridor toward the terrace, needing air. She looked over the dark garden where yesterday's battle had spilled blood. Cleaners had scrubbed marble, only faint scars lingered. She whispered to the night, voicing her resolve. "I will not be pawn or trophy. If I stay, I shape my own fate. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to find Enzo, holding Alessandro's t-shirt freshly laundered. He thought you might want this back, Enzo said. She accepted the folded shirt, soft and warm from the dryer. Against her chest, it felt like a promise. Unfinished, uncertain, but alive. Tell him I plan to borrow more, she said. Enzo grinned. Rare and genuine. I will. Aria watched him disappear, then turned back to the garden. In the silence, she heard her heartbeat and imagined another, slower rhythm echoing from Alessandro's quarters, the two pulses separate yet somehow already learning the same song. She breathed in damp night air, feeling at once caged and astonishingly free, suspended between terror and something fierce, bright, and burgeoning. Tomorrow would bring council politics, enemy reprisals, and the inevitable question of vows. But tonight she let the quiet cradle her new reality. Reluctant prisoner, reluctant savior, woman reaching toward man through darkness, each scar a stepping stone. For the first time since the abduction, Aria let a smile curve her lips, not of surrender, but of challenge. She would shape this story as much as he did. And if love dared to bloom here, it would be on her terms, strong enough to outgrow every wall. Morning light slanted through tall French windows, brushing gold across Alessandro's bedroom wall, and the broad headboard carved with curling acanthus leaves. Aria paused on the threshold, taking in the room's calm hush. The low hum of a monitor, a faint scent of antiseptic mingling with cedar. Alessandro lay against a bank of pillows, sling snug across his chest. His eyes were open and clear, tracing the dust motes spinning in the risen sun. A small smile lifted one corner of his mouth when he noticed her. "You're early," he murmured, voice still rough with sleep. "I couldn't stay away." She crossed the thick rug until she stood at his bedside. "Clara said the doctor gave you clearance to sit up, but not without help." "She's more relentless than any bullet." Alessandro shifted, then winced as the sling tugged. "Will you?" Aria took a breath, slid a hand behind his shoulders, and braced her other palm against the mattress. "Ready?" "At your command." She guided him slowly forward. His bare torso, bandaged and bruised, felt too warm under her touch. She fought the instinct to snatch her hand back. They moved in careful increments until Alessandro sat upright, breathing hard as if the small victory had cost him a mile of running. "Thank you." He sagged against the headboard. A bead of sweat traced his temple. "This should be less humiliating." "It's honest," she said, straightening the sheet over his legs. "You almost died. Even Don of New York is allowed to be human." "Human," he repeated softly. "Feels unfamiliar." His gaze flicked to her wrist, where a faint bruise remained from the zip tie days ago. "Yet you keep reminding me what that looks like." She pulled the bedside table closer, unscrewed the cap from a bottle of spring water, and held it to his lips. He drank, eyes on hers. The silence vibrated with words they didn't dare speak. When he finished, she set the bottle down and reached for the small medical kit the doctor had left. "Let me check the dressing," she said. "You'll make an excellent field nurse," he joked. "It's a terrifying new skill set." She peeled back the gauze with cautious fingers, revealing the neat row of stitches arcing across his shoulder. Angry red, but clean. "No swelling," she noted, laying fresh gauze. "You're healing." "Physically." He let out a slow breath. "The rest takes longer." Aria secured the tape, then lingered, palm hovering. "Tell me," she prompted. He closed his eyes. "There was a man once, Luca Benedetti. He grew up under my father's roof, practically my brother. When I took control of the family, he became my underboss. Trusted, loyal, or so I believed." Alessandro's eyes opened, focused on somewhere far away. "He sold intel to a rival clan for 2 years. We lost men because of him. When I confronted Luca, he begged for mercy, said he made the deal to protect his wife. I offered help, money, protection, but he tried to shoot me instead. The bullet grazed my ribs. I killed him with my own gun. Betrayal doesn't fade, Aria. It lives under the skin. You still feel it. Her voice was soft as cotton. Every day. He searched her face. I told you once I admire your bravery. What terrifies me is trusting it. Because if you walk away, or worse, turn against me, my bones might remember Luca too clearly. Aria felt emotion tighten her chest. I'm not Luca. I pray you never prove me wrong. He looked away, suddenly ashamed of that confession. She sat on the edge of the mattress, close enough that their knees brushed. People betray when they're afraid or cornered or when greed is stronger than loyalty. I can't promise perfect loyalty, Alessandro. But I won't betray you. Her honesty tasted raw, fragile, and impossibly true. He turned back, relief softening his features. Then we're already better off than yesterday. Heat crept along her cheeks. She touched the cool rim of the water bottle to hide her blush. Let's get you standing. Doctor said moving keeps the muscles from stiffening. He chuckled. You memorize every medical order. I learn fast. She pressed the call button for Enzo, who appeared after a minute with a supportive sling harness. Together they eased Alessandro to his feet. He held himself tall despite the pain, and for a second Aria forgot her resentment, seeing only a man stripped of all myth and steel. Breakfast in the garden? Alessandro asked. Rain cleared, Enzo added. Paths are dry. Aria glanced at Alessandro's feet in slippered loafers. Steady? I have you, he answered simply. Minutes later they stepped into the south garden. The sky stretched pale blue, clouds drifting like torn cotton. Birdsong threaded the warm air. Roses spilled scent across damp pathways. Alessandro set a slow pace. Guards lingered at a respectful distance. They paused by a low bench near a stand of oleanders. Aria helped him sit. Sunbeams brushed his cheek, showing faint lines at the corners of his eyes she'd never noticed. My mother loved morning light, he said. She said it proved that darkness never wins. What was she like? Fierce, gentle. She could negotiate a ceasefire over tea. She knew names of every soldier's children. When she died from cancer, half the city came to the funeral. She sounds extraordinary. She taught me protection is a form of love. He laid his good hand on the stone bench, and that love demands honesty. Aria stared at her own hands. My mother died when I was 13. She was sunshine in a storm. She'd wake me before dawn to watch the street markets open. She wanted me to be a designer, clothing, maybe interiors. She said beauty was resistance. You still draw? Alessandro asked. Not since university. My father dismissed it. She exhaled a small, rueful laugh. He pulled funding for my classes after I refused a date with the son of one of his associates. Alessandro's eyes darkened with pity and anger. Your father uses affection like currency. Aria plucked a blade of grass. I swore I'd rebuild my life without him. Opening the gallery job was step one. Then you dropped a net over everything. He winced. I know. He shifted, careful not to pull the stitches. I can't erase how we started, Aria. I can change what comes next. How? Walk with me. He stood. Guards hovered, but he waved them back. They wandered toward a hidden alcove where a fountain murmured. Alessandro gestured her to a weathered wrought iron table outside his study's glass doors. Enzo waited inside, placing 2 phones on a tray. I had these prepared. Alessandro lifted one sleek device, handing it to her. Encrypted line. You can call Giana any time between 6 a.m. and midnight. Only she is whitelisted. No other restriction. Aria blinked. You're giving me a phone? Trust must breathe, he said. You'll have escorts within the estate, but they'll keep distance. Privacy, within reason. She turned the phone in her hand, weight of freedom and caution balancing. Why now? Because every time I try to protect you, you remind me you're not breakable crystal. He leaned on the table, gaze intent. The choice to stay needs to feel like choice. A soft rush of warmth spiraled through her. What if I call the police? They'd put you in protective custody, then trade you to whoever offers more. I trust you know that. She nodded. I do. She extended her hand for a shake. He clasped it, calloused palm warming her skin. Electricity jumped up her arm. Neither let go. Enzo cleared his throat from inside the study. Alessandro released her slowly, eyes lingering on the contact point. One more thing, he said, breathing steady. On days I'm cleared for travel, I'd like to take you beyond the walls. You choose where. We craft new memories. Aria's heart thudded. Conditional freedom. For now. His smile was brief, hopeful. You'll still have guards, but they'll dress civilian. She bit her lip. It sounds almost normal. I crave normal with you. The sincerity of his tone sent shivers across her shoulders. Before she could respond, Enzo appeared at the study door, his usual calm cracked by tension. Don, message arrived from Valenti family, recorded video. We traced the drop server, but it's encrypted. Alessandro's expression hardened. Let me see. Enzo led them inside. A laptop sat open on the mahogany desk. Alessandro clicked play. Aria hovered behind, stomach tight. The screen showed a balaclava-masked man standing before a black flag. His Italian was rough, heavily accented. Moretti, he said. You took 11 of ours. We will take something precious from you. The next time we come, we do not fail. The video looped to a skull drawn in red paint, then ended. Alessandro exhaled, jaw clenched. They want her. Obviously, Enzo said. Aria felt cold. They say they won't fail. Alessandro turned, anger edged with fear. I won't let them within 100 meters. I'm not a porcelain doll, she insisted, but inside her pulse raced. I know, he said softly, but you're my heart's geography. Losing you destroys my map. The words left her speechless. He turned back to Enzo. Double the night teams, infrared drones over the South Forest. No one rests until we identify the leader of this cell. Enzo nodded, eyes flicking to Aria with sympathy before leaving. Alessandro pressed fist to the desk, breathing hard. Aria stepped forward, touching his arm just above the bandage. We'll handle it, she said. Together. He straightened, searching her face. Together, he echoed. They stood close enough that she felt warmth radiate off his chest. The second attack hung between them like storm clouds, but so did the unspoken fact that he had called her his heart's geography. Somehow, that mattered more than any threat. Dinner tonight, he said suddenly, voice low. Just us. Candlelight instead of security footage. She managed a small smile. I'll wear something nice. I like you in anything. His gaze dropped, lingering at her lips before retreating. Or nothing, he added, then blinked as if surprised by his own honesty. Forgive me. Blush heated her cheeks. We'll see if you deserve that view. He chuckled, pain bending the sound but not dimming it. Challenge accepted. Aria glanced at the phone in her palm. I'll call Giana. Tell her I'm safe. She will still threaten to burn me down, he predicted. Probably. Aria shook her head. You have no idea how hard she will fight. I do, he said quietly. I see it in you. Aria's chest fluttered. She stepped back. Rest before dinner. I'll see you then. I'll be counting hours. His smile was soft but fierce. She left the study, phone clutched like a fragile fledgling. The corridor felt different now, less a cage, more a labyrinth she might choose to navigate. Guards dipped their heads as she passed, but at a respectful distance, exactly as Alessandro promised. Back in her suite, she dialed Giana. Her friend answered on the first ring, voice tense. Aria, you okay? I'm good, G. I have a phone now. I can call any time. Is this permanent or bait? Let's call it progress. Giana exhaled, then laughed nervously. Progress sounds like a hostage negotiation. Is he there? No, just me. Aria sat on the edge of the sofa, gaze flicking to the terrace doors. I can't explain everything yet, but I need you to trust me a little longer. I trust you. Giana sighed. I hate this, but I trust you. I know. Aria hugged her knees. Tell me about Marco and the tattoo barista. Giana launched into a recount of awkward coffee spills and him asking her out with a latte art heart. The normal chatter smoothed some edges around Aria's heart. When they ended the call, Aria felt warmth coil in her chest. She closed the phone, whispering to the empty room, I'm choosing. The words hung there, light and terrifying. She stood, stretching. Dinner at 8, Alessandro had said. That left hours to wander the grounds within guard sight, maybe sketch something for the first time in years. She opened her wardrobe, running fingers over silks and linens. She pulled out a sea-green dress, simple lines that flowed like water. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman she barely recognized. Eyes bright, shoulders squared, lips curved with something dangerously close to hope. She touched the faint bruise at her wrist, then the healing scratch on her arm. Scars of captivity that bore witness to transformation. A knock sounded. Clara entered with a tray of sliced fruit, cheese, and fresh bread. She set it down, then eyed the dress. Dinner with the Don? She asked quietly. Aria nodded. Clara smiled, a gentle curve. You look like yourself again. I'm not sure who that is anymore, Aria confessed. Someone braver than yesterday, Clara said, and left. Aria bit into a strawberry, tasting summer. She carried the plate to the table near the window, opened her notebook, and began to draw, sweeping shapes of the fountain, Alessandro's profile softer than stone, roses unfurling against broken marble. Pencil traces felt like breathing. Outside, clouds gathered beyond distant hills. A storm might come tonight, nature reflecting the threat still lurking. But she would sit at Alessandro's table bathed in candlelight, wearing green like renewal, and see what truths lay hidden in his wounded heart. Aria waited outside the small formal dining room, smoothing the skirt of her sea-green dress while her heart drummed a restless rhythm. Candlelight flickered beyond the half-open doors, casting warm gold across parquet flooring and the carved sideboard where a single silver ice bucket chilled a bottle of white wine. 2 guards stood at each end of the corridor but faced outward, polite sentinels rather than looming wardens. One of them, Marco, offered a barely there nod that said he recognized she was no longer just a hostage. Enzo appeared, fresh suit, tie loose at the collar. He's almost ready, he said quietly. Is the sling still enough support? Aria asked. He insisted on wearing a jacket. A hint of amusement lit Enzo's eyes. Your dress might be the only thing keeping him from tearing stitches to impress you. Aria rolled her eyes, but warmth fluttered in her chest. Motivation is helpful, as long as he stays upright. Enzo pushed the doors open farther. Then enter, Signorina, and perhaps keep the conversation low stress for the first course. She stepped inside. 7 candles of varying heights glowed along the center of the polished mahogany table. A white linen runner softened their reflections. Only 2 place settings waited, porcelain edged in cobalt, crystal water goblets already glistening with condensation. Alessandro stood near the hearth. He wore a charcoal jacket tailored to conceal the bulk of the sling beneath, though the line of his shoulders was still stiff. His hair, slightly longer than she remembered, from that first terrifying night, brushed his collar. At the soft shuffle of her heels, he turned, breath catching. You're beautiful, he said simply. Heat flushed her cheeks. And you're overdressed for a man who just survived surgery. He crossed the space slowly, careful with each stride. A Don must keep up appearances. She stopped him by resting her fingertips at his good elbow. Appearances are overrated. Sit. He allowed her to guide him to the chair nearest the window where late dusk painted the sky fuchsia. She took the opposite seat. A moment passed in quiet appreciation of candlelight before a server entered pouring chilled wine. Alessandro dismissed him with a nod. The double doors closed, leaving them truly alone for the first time. Aria lifted her glass. To not dying? Alessandro chuckled, winced. An excellent toast. He clinked carefully. They sipped. The wine was crisp with notes of peach and honeysuckle. A second server wheeled in silver-domed platters. Saffron risotto dotted with lemon zest and capers. Roasted asparagus drizzled in olive oil. When he left, silence settled again, but softer, inviting conversation rather than weighing it down. Aria tested the risotto. You can't taste the bullet wound in the seasoning at all. He laughed outright, shoulders shaking, then hissed, hand hovering near his stitches. Your humor may kill me faster than any rival. Doctor's orders minimal laughter, she teased. Does that mean no jokes about your dramatic father? He asked gently. Her fork paused. You know, she said, voice steady. For years I thought if I just became successful on my own, he'd finally respect me. She set the utensil down. But I was currency. Am still. In his eyes. Alessandro leaned forward, candlelight tracing the angles of his face. That is why I offered you the phone and freedom. I need you to know I'm not him. I may be many terrible things, but I am not a man who wants your dreams crushed beneath mine. Dreams, she echoed, swirling wine. I used to imagine designing costumes for theater, silk cloaks, beadwork that caught stage lights. A small laugh escaped. Now I'm sketching security layouts and exit routes instead. Design requires vision, he said. You saved lives last night with that vision. Their gazes locked across the candles. She felt the air shift, like two magnets tipping toward alignment. He continued softly. Tell me one dream untouched by this world. Something yours alone. She hesitated, surprised by the intimacy of the request. I've always wanted to see Iceland's northern lights, she admitted. To stand in cold air so clear it feels alive. Then when the winter winds arrive, Alessandro said, I will wrap us in wool and fly you there. No councils, no rivals, just color across night sky. The offer startled her with its sincerity. Promises are easy in candlelight. I'll prove it when darkness is colder. Before she could answer, the doors opened and Enzo entered, brow knit. Don, apologies. A courier drone dropped an envelope at the west gate. Alessandro's expression hardened. Read it. Enzo produced a sealed black envelope. Alessandro gestured to Aria. She stays. Aria's stomach knotted as Enzo slit the envelope. A typed card slid out. 2 lines in English. 11 for 11 is not balance. 1 starless night she will bleed for you. Enzo laid the card on the table. Alessandro's knuckles whitened around his wine glass. They threaten Aria directly again, he said, voice low and lethal. Tonight we double watch, Enzo added. But storm clouds gather. The perimeter sensors noticed movement in the ravine. Alessandro stood despite Aria's protest. No more letters. Action. Enzo nodded. Teams already mobilizing, drones up in 10 minutes. Alessandro's gaze slid to Aria, softening. I promised you dinner. She pushed her chair back. That can wait. We can eat later. He opened his mouth, whether in argument or thanks she wasn't sure, when the lights dimmed, flickered, then steadied to emergency levels. Aria's pulse slammed. Enzo touched his earpiece. Main grid tripped, he reported. Backup running. Could be sabotage. A guard burst in. Unidentified vehicles approaching South Gate. Alessandro's voice cut through the tension. Lock the estate. Aria, move. He reached for her hand with his good one, guiding her toward a side exit. She matched his brisk steps, every sense sparking. Outside the corridor windows, floodlights swept across hedges as guards took positions. They emerged onto a covered breezeway leading to the greenhouse, moonlight carving shadows in marble. Distant gunshots cracked, short bursts. Back inside, Aria urged. Enzo has men in the conservatory, Alessandro said. From there, we accessed the secure tunnel. A figure zipped across the lawn ahead, black clothes, rifle glinting. Another shot rang out, fracturing a stone column inches from Alessandro's shoulder. He pushed Aria behind a planter as guards returned fire, bullets sparking. Aria's mind raced. "The greenhouse doors are bulletproof glass," she said quickly, "but the attackers can flank those big windows and trap us. The laundry corridor connects to the old wine cellar. You've kept it sealed, but it's stone and closer." Alessandro met her eyes, trusting. "Lead." She grabbed his hand, sprinted across the breezeway's open gap while guards laid cover. They ducked through a service door into dim halls, smelling of jasmine detergent. Automatic lights snapped on. She navigated stacked carts, turned left at a linen shelf. Behind them, gunfire rattled again, closer. Alessandro's breathing roughened, exertion straining injured muscle, but he kept pace. At the end of the passage, a heavy oak door stood barred by two beams. Aria shoved one up. Alessandro gripped the second, teeth clenched. Together, they swung the door open to reveal stone steps spiraling down into cool dark. They descended. The cellar smelled of dust and old Merlot. Bottles glittered in wall niches. She pushed another thick door, locking it behind them. "Safe for now," she whispered, lungs burning. Alessandro leaned against stone, sweat purling at his hairline. "You knew this route?" "I memorized the blueprint your architect framed in the library," she said, voice shaky. "Just in case." He exhaled a laugh, equal parts admiration and disbelief. "You're remarkable." Footsteps thundered above, stone muffled shouts. They waited, listening to guards bark commands and the attackers retreating fire. Minutes stretched like wire. Eventually, Enzo's voice called down the stairwell. "Don, it's clear." Alessandro opened the door. Enzo appeared, firearm lowered. His shoulders sagged in relief at seeing them unharmed. "We flanked them through the eastern hedge," Enzo said. "Minimal injuries on our side. 2 attackers captured. Rest fled." "And casualties?" Alessandro asked. "1 guard shot in the arm, another grazed, stable." Alessandro's gaze slid to Aria, because she spotted the trap before it closed. Enzo offered her a grateful nod. "Your quick thinking saved minutes. Minutes save lives." Warm pride fluttered under Aria's ribs, tempered by adrenaline tremors. "Let's check the injured," she said. They made their way upstairs. Medics already bandaged a guard at the foyer. Alessandro murmured thanks to each wounded man, his presence steadying. When triage settled, Enzo hinted at giving them space. Alessandro gestured toward the hallway leading to his wing. "I need rest," he admitted softly to Aria. "Walk with me." She fell in step beside him. The grand corridor, once intimidating, felt almost intimate now, moonlight pooling through skylights. Guards lingered like distant stars. Inside his room, he shrugged painfully out of his jacket. She helped ease off the sling long enough for him to sit, then rehung it with gentle fingers. Candlelight from the dressing table painted flickers across his jaw. "Thank you," he said. "You'd do the same." Her hands hovered at his shoulders. "Are you hurting?" "Less than I should." He covered her hand, thumb brushing her pulse. "I meant what I said tonight at dinner. I don't want a prisoner. I want a partner. I want you standing beside me because you choose this life." She met his gaze and saw no cunning, only hard-earned vulnerability. "This life is fire on all sides, Alessandro. Then I'll build walls that keep you warm, not burn you." He lifted her hands to his lips, pressing kisses to each knuckle. "I desire you, but I won't claim more than you give freely." Emotion welled thick. She moved closer, feeling his breath mingle with hers. Everything tonight could have ended in blood. Instead, you trusted my idea. "I'd trust your heartbeat," he whispered, and she swallowed. "I don't know what to call what's growing between us." "Hope?" His voice shook. "Or madness?" Their faces hovered inches apart. Candle flames trembled. Slowly, deliberately, she closed the gap, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was warm, cautious, but quickly deepened. Alessandro's hand slid up her back. Gentle, despite hunger. Her fingers tangled in his hair, drawing him closer. For a suspended moment there was no Mafia, no threats, only shared breath and racing hearts. He pulled back first, eyes dark with desire. If we continue, I won't have strength to stop. Her chest rose, fell. I need time to breathe. She stroked his cheek. But no, I wanted that. Hope flared in his stare. Then breathe, Aria. I'll be here when you exhale. She stepped away, heart hammering. Rest, she said softly. She turned, walking toward the door on trembling legs. Aria, he called. She paused. Thank you for saving me. Again. She smiled, tears pricking. We're even now. In the corridor, she leaned against cool paneling, steadying her pulse. Tonight had changed everything. A threat deflected, trust tested, desire awakened. She pressed her fingers to her lips, feeling their warmth. Reason whispered caution, but her heart thrummed possibility. Aria stood in the dim corridor long enough for the house to quiet again, guards murmuring over radios, distant footsteps fading. Candles on the console table sputtered, their scent of beeswax and citrus mixing with faint gunpowder that still clung to the air. She pressed a hand to her chest, half expecting her heart to hammer through her ribs, then forced herself toward her suite. Inside, soft lamplight waited. Clara had been there, the bed covers turned down, a carafe of water on the nightstand, and a note propped against the glass. Aria unfolded it. Sleep. Tomorrow is heavy. She smiled at the neat, looping script. Heavy was an understatement. Carefully, she set the note aside and slipped out of her heels. Her knees wobbled with adrenaline's ebb, and she paced the room, trying to siphon nervous energy through movement. She tugged open the balcony doors just enough for cool air to seep in. Beyond the gardens, the estate's outer walls stood dark except for slow-moving security lights, sweeping emerald lawns. Somewhere, men prowled with rifles, securing the perimeter Aria's quick thinking had helped defend. The realization both empowered and frightened her. She could help or harm him now. Trust was a blade balanced on its edge. She crossed to her armoire, retrieving a loose cotton tee and sleep shorts. As she unzipped the dress, Alessandro's words replayed. Heart's geography, hope, madness. She pressed her palms to the fabric at her waist, feeling her skin still hot where his lips had lingered on her fingertips. If he had pulled her into that kiss any deeper, she might have drowned gladly, surrendering everything. But she feared losing herself, feared becoming a silhouette of the girl who once sketched stage costumes between cafe shifts and believed she could outshine her father's world. She pulled on the t-shirt, an oversized souvenir from an art fair Giana dragged her 2 years ago, and tied her damp hair into a messy knot. The mirror caught her reflection, barefaced, eyes bright with something not entirely fear or desire, but a ferocious blend of both. She touched her lips, still tingling from Alessandro's kiss. Her stomach clenched. She needed Giana's voice, the tether to normalcy. She grabbed the new phone and sat on the edge of the bed. The time glowed 1:39. Giana was likely still awake. Late hours fueled her creativity. Aria dialed. 1 ring, 2. A sleepy scratch of voice answered. Aria, are you okay? Sorry, late, I needed to hear you. Giana yawned softly. I was sketching the window display, so you saved me from obsessing over mannequins. Aria breathed out. Tonight was eventful. I saw news of a shootout outside Florence. Giana sounded more awake. They didn't name names. Was that? Yes, we're safe. Aria's gaze drifted to the balcony again. Alessandro and I were attacked, but we're fine. I actually helped. You helped fend off Mafia gunmen? Giana's voice pitched. My best friend turned action hero? Not exactly, just pointed out a better route. Aria lowered her voice. He trusted me. Maybe too much. Too much how? Are you falling for him, Aria? Silence filled the line. Aria's mouth went dry. I kissed him tonight. Giana exhaled a long, oh. And I stopped before it went further. Aria twisted the bedsheet. It felt powerful and terrifying, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump, because the view is breathtaking. Giana hummed. You still have a parachute, just make sure you pack it yourself, not him. It's complicated. He promised me choice, but choice inside these walls isn't full freedom. Love is never freedom if fear holds the leash, Giana whispered. Can you love him without losing pieces of you? Aria's throat tightened. I don't know yet, but he bled for me, Guy. She blinked back sudden tears. And when he looked at me afterward, it wasn't ownership. It was gratitude. As if I mattered outside his empire. Giana was quiet, then said, Love built on war can last, but only if peace follows. Make sure peace is part of the plan. Aria sniffed. You're wiser than half the philosophers I studied. I charge by the minute. Giana chuckled, then sobered. I believe in you. Design your future the way you once designed costumes. If Alessandro belongs in the final drawing, fine. But leave space for your independent lines. Aria pressed a palm over her eyes. Thank you. Now try to sleep. I want dream design sketches on my inbox tomorrow. They traded good nights. Aria set the phone down. The clock ticked 2:05, but sleep felt distant. She crossed to the desk and opened her notebook where pencil sketches of the fountain and Alessandro's profile filled earlier pages. She turned to a blank sheet and let the pencil wander, sweeping lines of a gown with dramatic shoulders, shimmering fabric overlay, embroidered stars along the hem. Northern lights. She shaded gradients of teal, purple, emerald. Her mind drifted to Lorenzo Rossi, her father's stern face, the way he dismissed her art dreams as childish. The betrayal still sat like a shard in her chest. She imagined confronting him. Look, Papa, I choose my own future. Would he even recognize the woman she was becoming? Did it matter? She set the pencil down and rubbed her eyes. The bedroom looked different with candlelight extinguished, shadows lapping beneath furniture, moonlight tracing silver on the wardrobe's carved doors. She crawled under the duvet but left the balcony door ajar. Cool air washed over her, carrying the scent of damp roses. Minutes stretched. She replayed the kiss. Alessandro's lips steady, yet tentative, as if asking permission while confessing need. Heat pooled low in her belly. She rolled onto her side, burying her face in a pillow, breathing his phantom scent. A subtle creak sounded in the hall. Guards. But her pulse quickened until she identified the cadence of footsteps. They belonged to Clara, her quiet shuffle. Aria rose, opening the door carefully. Clara held a small tin of salve. For bruises, she whispered. Lavender and olive. Old recipe. Aria's eyes stung with gratitude. You listen in the walls? Sound travels. Clara offered a conspiratorial smile. I heard you saved him again. We saved each other. Aria accepted the tin. Thank you. Clara's gaze dropped to Aria's tea. You kissed the Don. Aria's cheeks warmed. Is that in the walls too? I see it in your eyes. Clara touched her arm gently. Love is dangerous here, but it's also armor. Wear it wisely. Aria nodded. Clara tilted her head. Sleep, she advised before slipping away. Aria closed the door and placed the salve on the bedside. She massaged a dab into the bruise at her wrist, inhaling lavender. She climbed back under the covers, shutting her eyes. Dreams took their time arriving. She floated half awake, aware of distant thunder rumbling across the hills. In a hazy vision, she stood on a sketch paper stage wearing the Northern Lights gown. Audience seats were empty except for Alessandro in the front row, sling gone, eyes luminous. He reached out, but between them stood Lorenzo Rossi holding scissors, intent on snipping threads that held the gown together. She lifted the hem and ran. lights swirling overhead. Alessandro leapt the stage, chasing. Her father faded like smoke. She woke with a start, dawn just brushing the sky. Pale blue slid under curtains. The house seemed to exhale, the hush between night vigilance and morning bustle. She sat up, heart thudding, and realized she hadn't once hated Alessandro in her dream, only feared losing the fabric she'd sewn from freedom. She padded to the balcony. Dew glittered on roses. Security drones hovered like silent dragonflies. Somewhere, Alessandro might still be sleeping, or awake, reviewing threats. She wrapped arms around herself. Last night she'd promised inside her head to shape this story on her own terms. Now it felt less like promise than mission. Build a peace strong enough that love could breathe inside it. Not easy inside a world of bullets and bargaining, but one step at a time. She would demand a seat at his council, a voice in how his empire protected innocence. She would sketch strategies alongside gowns. She re-entered her room, retrieving the notebook. On a blank page, she wrote a single sentence in bold pencil. No vows without vows to peace. Below it, she listed questions she would ask Alessandro over breakfast. What does your council require of a Don's wife? Will you let me oversee charitable projects? How will you dismantle the cell that keeps striking us? She snapped the notebook shut, heart steadier. A soft knock landed on the door. She opened it to Enzo holding a silver tray with coffee and a white envelope. Morning, he greeted, eyes tired but warm. Doctor says the Don may walk the East Terrace soon. Coffee for you. Letter 2. She accepted the tray, curiosity prickling. From whom? It arrived early, courier marked Milano. Giana's boutique. Aria's breath caught. She set the coffee down and opened the envelope. Inside lay a single Polaroid. Giana standing before her shop window with a mannequin dressed in an emerald gown. Aria's earlier sketches realized in chiffon and satin. On the back, Giana had written, "Your dream waits." Tears welled, surprising her. She tucked the photo to her chest. Enzo cleared his throat, a polite exit gesture. She called after him. Enzo? He paused, brows lifted. Thank you for everything. Convey my gratitude to the guards. They fight for more than a paycheck. A flicker of pride lit his face. They serve a leader who inspires loyalty. Perhaps soon, they'll serve too. He disappeared down the hall. Aria returned to the balcony with her coffee, steam curling into morning air. She studied the Polaroid again, heart swelling. Maybe Giana had already begun sowing the future Aria feared to hope for. A movement near the East Terrace caught her eye. Alessandro, leaning on the balustrade, sling fastened, but posture straight. He was speaking to Enzo, face angled toward the rising sun. As if sensing her gaze, he turned. Even at this distance, she felt the pull. He lifted his good hand in a small greeting. She raised her coffee cup in answer. Silence held them like an invisible thread stretching across the damp garden. In that fragile moment, dawn reflected in his storm-gray eyes, and she knew her life was no longer only her own, tethered not by chains but by choice. She would test that choice against every threat, every fear. If it held, she would weave a new design from it, vibrant as northern lights. She whispered to the brightening sky, I won't lose myself. I'll find who I am with him, not inside him. The wind stirred, lifting the edges of her tea like a promise of motion. She sipped coffee, breathing lavender, salt, and the clean scent of rain-washed roses. The estate busied below, boots on gravel, staff exchanging greetings, but inside her, a calm blossomed. Tonight's kiss had changed everything, yes, but more than the kiss, it was the trust between breaths, the permission to walk side by side into gunfire and candlelight alike. She touched her lips again, letting memory steady into resolve. One step at a time, she would insist on a world where love and freedom could coexist. If anyone could bend iron bars into blossoming vines, it was the designer inside her, the strategist she was becoming, and the man who saw both when he called her his heart's geography. With a final glance at Alessandro's distant silhouette, she turned back inside to dress for the day, notebook under her arm, ready to sketch the path ahead. The morning unfurled soft and clear, the sort of pale blue sky that promised a day free of storms. Aria stepped onto the east terrace barefoot, feeling the sun-warmed flagstone kiss the soles of her feet. Clara had already arranged breakfast on a small wrought iron table. A carafe of fresh orange juice, flaky croissants, slivers of melon, sweet enough to perfume the air. Beside each plate sat a single gardenia, its ivory petals still beaded with dew. Alessandro lingered near the balustrade, his sling gone at last, though a light compression wrap still circled his shoulder beneath the linen of his white shirt. The breeze teased strands of his dark hair over his brow, lending him a boyishness that tugged unexpectedly at her heart. "I thought you might sleep in," he said when she joined him. "I dreamed of this," she answered, placing her palm atop his hand on the railing. A morning with no gunshots. He lifted her fingers to his lips, brushing a kiss against her knuckles. "Let's hope the world keeps quiet long enough to finish our croissants." They settled at the table, sun painting gold across the dishes. Clara dipped her head from the doorway before leaving them alone. Aria buttered a pastry and watched Alessandro's movements. The careful way he held his cup, the faint hitch when he reached too far. "Pain?" she asked. "A dull echo," he admitted. "Reminds me I'm mortal." She tilted her head. "Sometimes you need reminding." He studied her over the rim of his cup. "You look at peace." "For the first time since that night in my apartment." She set her butter knife down. "But I've been thinking. If I stay, really stay, I can't sit in a gilded room while you run an empire. I need a seat at the table, a vote, a purpose." He leaned back, a small, satisfied smile curving his mouth. "I already told Enzo to add a chair to the strategy room. It felt presumptuous to promise before asking." Her pulse quickened. "You're serious?" "You are already governing my heart, Aria. Governing the estate is an obvious extension." He reached across the table, folding her hand into his. "I want you beside me, offering ideas, vetoing foolish plans, reminding me mercy is not weakness." She squeezed his fingers, warmth pooling in her chest. "Then we start today. No waiting." A footstep sounded. Enzo approached with his impeccable calm, though his eyes betrayed urgency. "Done, signora," he greeted, then cleared his throat. "Lorenzo Rossi has arrived at the main gate." The calm of breakfast tightened like a snapped string. Alessandro's grip on Aria's hand firmed. "Right on schedule," he murmured. "Escort him to the study. No weapons, no entourage." Enzo nodded. "He's already been searched. Only his dignity left." When Enzo disappeared, Aria lifted her cup to her lips but paused, suddenly unsure she could swallow. Alessandro watched her, concern softening his gaze. "We can postpone this." "No," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "I asked for a vote. This is my first." They stood and she tucked her hand into the crook of his arm. Together they crossed the terrace, down a corridor washed in pale morning light that glinted off portraits of stern Moretti ancestors. The scent of wax polish lingered in the cool hall, mingling with distant floral notes from Clara's cleaning soaps. The world felt hushed, as if the house itself held its breath. Inside the study, Lorenzo Rossi paced before the fireplace, gray suit, pristine, silver cufflinks gleaming like tiny shields. He turned at their entrance, expression carefully neutral, until his gaze landed on Aria's bare feet, her relaxed posture beside Alessandro. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Daughter," he greeted, voice smooth as aged grappa. "You look well." "Alive, you mean," Aria replied. She moved past Alessandro, claiming the seat opposite the desk. "Sit, Papa." Lorenzo arched a brow but obeyed. Alessandro remained standing at her side, one hand resting lightly on the chair back in silent support. "I appreciate you seeing me," Lorenzo began. I'm here to resolve. To listen, Alessandro interrupted, tone polite but edged with steel. Aria will speak first. Lorenzo's gaze flicked to his daughter, half challenge, half surprise. She folded her hands on the leather blotter. The smell of old books and cedar ink box grounded her. I have nothing to resolve, she said clearly. Your debts are paid. Your leverage over my life is finished. Today is a courtesy, not a concession. Lorenzo's lips flattened. Courtesy? I am still your father. Biology isn't entitlement, she answered. You bartered me like art at an auction and never asked if I wanted the frame you picked. Her voice trembled only slightly. Alessandro's fingers brushed her shoulder in silent encouragement. Lorenzo leaned forward, palms flat on his knees. You misjudge me. I positioned you for power and protection. Now look, you dine on porcelain and command armies. Protection? Aria laughed softly, not with mirth. I endured 2 attacks, bullets shattering walls while you remained in Milan sipping vintage wine. Alessandro bled for me. You never even called after the first assault. Something cold flashed in Lorenzo's eyes. I knew he would keep you safe. Alessandro spoke then, voice low. Let's be honest. You gambled Aria's safety on the hope I valued her far above my own survival. A shrewd calculation. It worked. Lorenzo's shoulders relaxed, almost smug. Exactly. But, Alessandro continued, stepping closer, that calculation ends here. If you contact her uninvited, if you attempt to manipulate her life again, you will find my patience has limits. A shadow of temper darkened Lorenzo's face. Are you threatening me in front of my daughter? I'm promising consequences, Alessandro replied. Take it whichever way stings less. Aria drew a steady breath. I'm not your bargaining chip anymore, Papa. I choose my future. She reached for Alessandro's hand, entwining their fingers deliberately. And I choose him. Lorenzo's gaze dropped to their joined hands, then lifted. For the first time he looked tired, lines deepening around his mouth. Then this conversation is finished. He rose. When you tire of this life, Aria, you will find my door open. I've already walked through it, she said softly, and it doesn't lead home. He hesitated as if words tangled behind his teeth, but he swallowed them and turned toward the exit. Enzo stepped aside to let him pass. The click of the door echoed like a gavel. Silence settled, restless and electric. Alessandro squeezed her fingers. Are you okay? Aria exhaled, realizing she had been holding breath. Yes. Lighter, actually. Your voice didn't tremble, he observed with pride. Mine almost did. She gave a shaky laugh. My feet are still bare. Somehow that made me brave. He bent, brushing a quick kiss to her forehead. Bare feet or steel-toed boots, you could conquer kingdoms. Enzo cleared his throat. Don, intel update can wait until after you finish breakfast. No, Alessandro said, sliding into the chair Lorenzo had vacated. Give us the short version. Enzo placed a tablet on the desk, screen lit with satellite imagery. Drone reconnaissance overnight spotted a convoy at a farmhouse 15 kilometers south. Heat signatures match the remaining Valenti cell. We have a window before they disperse. Aria circled the desk, studying the cluster of red dots. The farmhouse backs onto woodland. If they detect vehicles, they'll vanish into the trees. Alessandro nodded. You suggest an aerial approach? Helicopter insertion half a click east, she said, tracing a finger along the image. Dawn's sun will blind lookouts for a few minutes. Your men flank west through the orchard, cut off escape routes. Enzo whistled low. Smart. Alessandro's eyes gleamed. And you? I'll monitor from the command room, she said, heartbeat quickening. I won't be in your line of fire, but I want eyes on the operation. He studied her for a breath, then smiled that small, proud smile. Welcome to the table. He stood, shoulders squared. Enzo, prepare the helipad. 15 minutes. Enzo saluted informally and left. Alessandro turned to Aria. This will be quick. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. We neutralize, we return. She brushed fingertips along the seam of his shirt near his healed wound. No fresh stitches. Promise me. He caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. I promise. They moved through the house, Alessandro issuing orders, Aria trailing close, memorizing codes Enzo relayed. Guards snapped to attention when she passed, acknowledging her with new respect. She donned a headset in the security room, screens lining one wall, each camera view flicking between infrared outlines and drone feeds. The room smelled of coffee and stress. Clara slipped in with a bottle of water. For steady hands, she whispered. Aria took it gratefully. Thank you. Clara's gaze held admiration. We're all safer with you here. Aria settled at the console. Through the glass partition, she saw Alessandro stride across the lawn toward the sleek black helicopter, sunlight catching his profile. He glanced back once, meeting her eyes through layers of glass and distance. She raised 2 fingers, her silent salute of faith. He mirrored the gesture, then ducked inside the aircraft. Blades spun, scattering dew into glittering mist. The helicopter lifted, banking south. Aria's pulse synced with the rotor thrum feeding through her headset. She adjusted controls, bringing up heat maps. Red silhouettes flickered near the farmhouse. Enzo's voice crackled. Team Alpha, on approach. ETA, 2 minutes. Alessandro's calm baritone followed. Copy. Visual on Orchard. Static hissed, then his next words spilled warm in her ears. Aria, I hear your breath. Keep it slow for me. She inhaled deliberately, steadying, eyes on target, no surprises. Ready to breach, Enzo reported. Aria watched shapes advance, blue outlines for Moretti men, red for hostiles. The teams converged. Muffled pops sounded. Silencers. 2 red blips winked out. Another fled toward the tree line. Alessandro's symbol, a bright green dot, moved like a knight across a chessboard, cutting off escape. A burst of gunfire crackled. The green dot paused. Her breath snagged. Status. Perimeter secure, Alessandro answered after a heartbeat. Minor wound. Not mine. Relief washed cold through her veins. The entire skirmish lasted less than 5 minutes. Good work, she whispered. Static cleared. Returning home, Alessandro said. She could hear the smile in his voice. She leaned back, heart fluttering with adrenaline and triumph. Clara's hand rested on her shoulder. They're safe? They're coming back, Aria confirmed, smiling. The helicopter banked over the south lawn just as the sun crested its zenith, blades beating the air like a triumphant drum roll. Aria watched from the veranda steps, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles blanched. When the runners touched grass, guards fanned out to secure the perimeter, but her focus narrowed to Alessandro's figure as he jumped down. Dust swirled around his boots. Sunlight cut across his jaw. He spotted her instantly. All the distance between them dissolved when he crossed the lawn, shucking tactical gloves, grin bright as the day. She hurried forward, skirts swishing against her calves. For half a heartbeat she worried his wrap might not hold, but when she flung her arms around him, his embrace felt solid and sure. You kept your promise, she breathed into his shoulder. No new stitches. Didn't dare break my word, he replied, voice rough from adrenaline. You were listening. Counting every breath. He drew back enough to scan her face, absorbing the relief shining in her eyes. Around them, guards applauded quietly. A subtle, but unmistakable show of respect. Enzo strode over, saluting with 2 fingers at his temple. Target neutralized, he reported. No casualties on our side. Excellent coordination, Signora. He offered Aria a nod that felt like a medal. Alessandro turned to his men. Today's victory belongs to all of you, and to Aria, who mapped the winning approach. His gaze swept the group, warm and authoritative. Her insight saved lives. The guards murmured in agreement. One younger soldier, Milo, tipped his cap. Grazie, signora. Aria's cheeks heated. She hadn't realized how much she'd craved acknowledgement until that simple phrase eased something inside her. Clara waited at the veranda with pitchers of iced lemonade. She thrust a glass into Alessandro's hand, another into Aria's. Refresh, then rest, she ordered with gentle authority. After a shower, Alessandro said, grimacing at dust on his sleeves. And water for those who fought, Aria added, gesturing toward the guards. Clara bustled off to comply, leaving them a moment of privacy amid the low hum of chatter and footfalls. Alessandro drained half the glass, then leaned close. Come walk. I need to feel grass under my boots without thinking about mines. They strolled along a shaded path bordering the rose garden. Sunlight filtered through leaves, stippling Alessandro's shirt in shifting patterns. He flexed his left arm experimentally. Feel stronger every day? I'm proud of you, she said, threading her fingers through his. Not just for winning, but for listening. He squeezed her hand. Victory loves humility, someone once told me. She laughed softly. I said that about good design, not combat. Applies to both. He stopped before a marble bench, tugging her down beside him. I want to mark this moment. The threat is gone. You are free to walk away, truly. I'll arrange safe passage. She turned to face him fully. I don't need passages. Only purpose. And I found it here. Emotion softened his expression. The possibility of tears glimmered behind gray irises, but he blinked them back, bringing their entwined fingers to his lips. You could have chosen safety elsewhere. I chose significance. She leaned in, pressing a kiss to his temple. And I think we still owe Clara 2 croissants. They returned to the veranda where Clara supervised a small buffet. Cheeses, fruit, fresh bread, wine only half hidden in a glass cooler. Staff gathered informally, gardeners, footmen, kitchen hands, lingering as Enzo offered toasts in rapid Italian. Alessandro raised his glass, and when he finished his brief speech, crediting vigilance, loyalty, and Aria's quick thinking, applause rose warm and genuine. Aria caught Clara's eye. The older woman offered a discreet thumbs up, pride shining on her face. For Aria, the celebration did more than close a military chapter. It rewrote her place in the household. She was no longer the rescue mission, no longer the reluctant fiancé. She was Alessandro's partner. Visible, acknowledged. Late afternoon light stretched gold across corridors as the gathering dispersed. Alessandro excused himself to debrief with Enzo, promising to meet Aria for dinner. Clara guided Aria upstairs, humming approval. You will need something that says queen, not captive, Clara said, swinging open the wardrobe doors. Fabric swayed, a sea of silks, velvets, chiffon. She pulled a midnight blue gown from its padded hanger. It shimmered like starlight, simple and elegant, back low, neckline gentle. Aria touched the material. It's beautiful. Enzo's idea, Clara revealed, grinning. He said stars should wear the night. Aria's chest tightened. He's been conspiring with Alessandro. And now with me. Clara produced delicate diamond drops, small and refined. Your mother's style, yes? Aria nodded, caught off guard by the ache of memory. She swallowed it with gratitude. Help me? Clara's fingers were deft. She zipped the gown, draped hair up with a pearl comb, brushed soft rose across Aria's cheeks. When she stepped back, Clara's eyes misted. Perfect. Aria studied her reflection, confidence in the lift of her chin, anticipation warming her gaze. The gown skimmed her body like moonlit water. Downstairs, candlelight flickered along the dining room walls. A small table replaced the grand one, strewn with white roses and tapered candles. Alessandro waited, tie absent, top buttons undone, the edges of a smile tugging his mouth when she entered. He crossed the room, pausing to sweep appreciative eyes over her. If the stars could walk, they'd look like you. She laid a hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath. You look real. Not the Don, just the man. Tonight I am only a man. He guided her to her seat, poured sparkling water, then wine. The first course arrived, seared scallops with lemon butter. They ate slowly, conversation unhurried. Between bites they traded quieter truths. Aria recalled her mother singing arias while chopping tomatoes on Sunday mornings, loneliness settling in after her death. Alessandro spoke of nights he lay awake as a child, listening for footsteps that might mean gunfire, how power later masked the echo of that fear. Candlelight polished vulnerability into something luminous, not raw. After dessert, a custard scented with vanilla bean, Alessandro produced a slim envelope. Open it. She slid out 2 crisp tickets, her name printed beside his. Destination, Reykjavik, Iceland. Departure, 1 month away. Winter skies, he said, the aurora should be glorious. She traced the embossed date. This was your promise. And your choice, he said, voice low. If you'd rather disappear alone, bored without me, I'll never chase. Tears blurred the tickets. She set them down carefully before twisting in her chair to face him. You keep giving me exits, but every time I take a step I find the road circles back to you. His jaw worked. Aria. She silenced him with her fingers on his lips, then leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so tired of doors. I want roots, not roots. She brushed her mouth against his, gentle as breath. I choose here. I choose you. He exhaled a shaky laugh that sounded like relief and wonder entwined. Say it again. I choose you, she repeated, firmer, sealing the words with a deep kiss. Warmth surged through her as he stood, drawing her with him. Without breaking the kiss, he led her down the hall, past the humming study, into his private wing. Shadows danced on walls lit by sconces. The fragrance of cedar lingered. At his bedroom door he paused. Last chance, he murmured, eyes searching hers. If we cross, we won't go back. She answered by slipping her fingers through the buttons of his shirt, pushing it off his shoulders. Forward, Alessandro. Her voice shook with anticipation. Always forward. Inside, candles already flickered from nightstands, casting honey tones across the duvet. She slid her hands over the planes of his back, feeling scars beneath supple skin. He winced reflexively, but she kissed each faded line, tracing history without fear. He cupped her face. You make every wound sacred, and you make every fear small. She responded, shivering when his lips traveled down her throat. They navigated clothing like dancers shedding costumes unhurried, attuned to subtle cues, her sharp inhalation when his fingers skimmed her spine, his low groan when she pressed a kiss above his bandaged shoulder. They moved to the bed, sheets cool against heated skin. He hovered, eyes dark with devotion. Tell me what you need. Everything you are, she whispered. Passion flared, slow but unstoppable, a tide pulling them under. Words became murmurs, then sighs. She felt his strength tempered by care, guiding, never forcing. He savored every inch of her skin like a map he'd dreamed of tracing. Her name on his lips sounded like prayer, his on hers, a promise. When they joined, the world narrowed to breath and heartbeat. She felt walls inside her cracking wide, not with pain, but release, fear melting into trust, loneliness into intimacy. They moved together until tension coiled, then unraveled in a sweet, shaking rush. She cried out, voice breaking. He followed with a rough exhale, arms tightening protectively. Silence settled, profound and tender. He brushed damp hair from her cheek. You shine brighter than any aurora. She laughed softly, resting her palm over his thudding heart. And you're not a storm anymore. You're sunrise. They stayed tangled, skin cooling, breath synchronizing. Eventually he shifted, reaching for a knit blanket draped across the footboard. He wrapped them both and guided her toward the open balcony doors where dawn's earliest glimmer brushed the horizon. They sat, knees tucked, blanket cocooning them against crisp air. Below, the gardens slumbered beneath faint starlight. A lone bird chirped hesitantly, as if testing the morning. Aria traced the raised lines of a scar along his ribs. These used to scare me. He kissed her palm. Do they still? They remind me how much living can hurt, but you're proof it's worth the risk. He nudged her chin up, eyes reflecting the faint blush of sunrise. You are my peace, Aria. I never believed I'd earn such a gift. She rested her temple against his shoulder. My home isn't a place anymore. It's wherever you are. Heat shimmered behind her eyelids, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were the ache of finally belonging. When the sun's rim peaked above distant hills, he breathed. Beautiful. Very, she agreed, though she watched him, not the sky. They lingered until daylight painted the clouds pink and gold. Birds joined in a tentative chorus. Alessandro's thumb idly stroked the inside of her wrist. Come, he said at last, there's one more promise I need to keep. Alessandro led Aria along a path she didn't recognize, deeper into the eastern grounds where the roses grew wilder, climbing trellises in riotous blooms of crimson and blush. Morning sun filtered through arching branches, dappling their joined hands. The hush of early birds lingered as if nature itself honored the fragile magic surrounding them. Where are we going? She asked, trying to keep curiosity from bursting into full excitement. I made a promise to give you roots, he said. Even roses need tending, but they're free to climb. He paused at a wrought iron gate half hidden behind ivy. It creaked when he pushed it open, revealing a secluded alcove carved from hedges and draped in rose canes. Petals littered the ground like confetti. She drew a breath, entranced by the heady perfume. At the center stood a small marble pedestal bearing a single velvet ring box and a vase of white gardenias. Her pulse fluttered. Alessandro turned to her, suddenly uncertain despite the surety he usually wore like armor. When you first arrived, I believed force could secure destiny. You proved choice is stronger. He reached for the box but paused. Before I kneel, understand this isn't repayment for bravery or a cage disguised in diamonds. It's gratitude and hope. And yes, love. Tears blurred her vision. Then kneel before I grab the box myself. A rare laugh tugged his mouth. He lowered to one knee, sunlight catching in his hair. He opened the box. Inside, a delicate ring nestled, a sapphire the color of deep twilight, flanked by two tiny diamonds. The band was slender, engraved with a faint aurora motif that wrapped half its circumference. The stone reminded me of the night sky I promised we'd chase, he said. Aria, will you marry me? Not by contract or duty, but by the simple fact that my life no longer makes sense without your hand in mine. Tears spilled freely now, blurring everything except the certainty in his gray eyes. She extended her left hand. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. His shoulders loosened with visible relief. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it felt as though a final lock clicked open inside her chest. She tugged him up before he could say more, sealing her answer with a kiss. It tasted of petals and salt, joy and eagerness. When they parted, both were breathless but grinning like fools. I hope you intend to get used to my laugh lines, he murmured, tracing her cheek with a thumb. I intend to deepen them every day, she replied. Soft applause followed. They turned to see Enzo, Clara, and a handful of staff respectfully clustered at the gate. Enzo's normally stoic face broke into a wide smile. He stepped forward, bowing his head. On behalf of the Moretti household, loyalty to Signora Aria, he declared. We are honored. Clara dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Hearts need homes, she whispered to Aria. You built one. Aria hugged her impulsively. Thank you for never letting me forget who I am. Clara squeezed her hand, then stepped aside as Alessandro draped an arm around Aria's shoulders. "We'll plan a ceremony that suits us," he said quietly. "Simple, but filled with people who truly matter." "Giana will insist on designing my dress," Aria noted, lifting her phone. She dialed her best friend, heart soaring when Giana answered instantly. "Tell me this is good news," Giana demanded, breathless. "Better, I'm engaged, and I need a gown that can handle Icelandic winters and Mafia galas." Giana squealed, the shrill delight crackling through the speaker. "I'm sketching already. Fur-lined velvet, maybe detachable train. Send me ring photos." Aria laughed. "You'll have them in minutes." Alessandro leaned close to the phone. "Giana, this is Alessandro. Thank you for guarding Aria's spirit when I couldn't." His voice held humility rarely heard. Giana's tone softened. "Guard it together. She deserves nothing less." "We will," he promised. Aria ended the call, pocketed the phone, then turned into Alessandro's chest. Around them, staff quietly withdrew, leaving birdsong and the rustle of wind through roses. She rested her head against his heartbeat. "What now?" "Breakfast round 2, he suggested playfully. She pinched his side. "Business first. We need to brief the council on rebuilding efforts, set up scholarship funds in memory of your fallen men, and expand community programs. And I want an arts initiative for at-risk kids in Milan." His grin widened. "Exactly the partner I prayed for. Consider it done." They started back toward the house, hands interlaced, discussing budgets and timelines with the casual ease of newlyweds planning table settings. Enzo met them halfway, offering a leather folder. "Preliminary financials for your new charity wing," he said, handing it to Aria. "I hope they meet your standards." She flicked through the pages, impressed by the thoroughness. "Perfect start. And thank you, Enzo, for believing in me before the rest did." He inclined his head. "Belief was easy once I saw Alessandro obey your tactical commands." His eyes twinkled. Fearsome sight. Alessandro scowled good-naturedly. "I obey because she's usually right." "Always right," Aria corrected, winking. They spent the afternoon in the sunlit conference room. Aria sat at the polished oak table's head while Alessandro paced, outlining restructuring plans. Council members, old lions of the family business, were present via video, but none challenged Aria's presence. Alessandro's earlier email had made it clear she spoke with equal authority. When she presented her initiative for community outreach, even the gruffest capo nodded approval. By late afternoon, the serious work paused. Alessandro closed his laptop and stretched. "Enough numbers. Come with me." They returned to the terrace where Clara laid out a modest feast of cheeses, olives, and chilled Prosecco. Milo and another guard tuned a battered guitar, strumming soft chords. Sunset streaked the sky in apricot and lilac. Aria twirled, letting the hem of her gown flare. Alessandro clapped in mock delight. "You're light on your feet," he observed. "Years of sneaking out of my bedroom to avoid Papa," she quipped. He extended a hand. "Dance with me then, no secrets needed." She joined him, sliding her palm into his. They swayed to the gentle melody, her head resting beneath his chin. His breath stirred stray wisps of hair at her temple. "I have one more gift," he murmured. "If it's another helicopter, I'll faint." Nothing so loud. He guided her to the balustrade where 2 passports lay beside a leather journal embossed with the Aurora design. Inside, blank pages waited. He placed a pen between them. "For sketches, for stories, whatever you wish as we travel." She opened the journal. The first page bore a handwritten quote in his elegant script. "Wherever you lead, my heart follows, because it's already there." Tears welled again, but she laughed through them. "There goes my makeup." He brushed away moisture with his thumb. "You don't need paint. You're art already." A hush settled as the sun sank toward the horizon. Milo's guitar faded to silence. Staff drifted indoors, letting evening claim the garden. Ready for tomorrow? Alessandro asked. Always forward. She echoed their bedroom vow. Night air cooled, carrying distant city sounds. They lingered until the first stars punctured the sky. Finally, Alessandro led her inside, up the sweeping staircase, past portraits that seemed less foreboding now. In the master suite, candles flickered, fresh sheets awaited. The ring on Aria's finger caught the warm glow, casting tiny constellations across the wall. As they prepared for bed, she paused by the window, gazing out at moonlit roses. Alessandro wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. Thinking. Remembering the girl who craved freedom, she said. Wondering if she'd recognize the woman who found it here. He kissed her neck. Freedom is a place you build, not where you run. She turned in his arms. Then let's keep building. They settled into bed, drawing the duvet over entwined limbs. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady drum of his heart, a rhythm she now knew as home. Sleep, he whispered, stroking her hair. Tomorrow we plan wedding menus. And scholarships and art programs. Of course, he laughed, eyes closing. She smiled into the darkness, finally unafraid of shadows. Outside, moonlight bathed the estate in silver peace. The world beyond still held dangers, but here, between the steady beats of Alessandro's heart and the soft future outlined in blank journal pages, Aria felt invincible. Sleep slipped in, tender and unbroken. And when dawn came again, painting the room in rose-gold light, they woke together, already speaking of flights to Iceland, vows under winter constellations, and a lifetime of mornings where love would always outrun fear.